Chapter 438. Looking at the peerless beauty with clear eyes, Dustless's face was filled with doubts. As Ling said, not to mention that there is no Haushika Haki in his body, even if there is such a power, there are very few people who can awaken Dustless. Since you can't awaken Haushiku, what's the use of it? With his eyes wide open, Dustless asked with more dissatisfaction, and the anger in his tone was not concealed. It's useless if you can't awaken Haushiku. It's not difficult to awaken, but are you sure you want to awaken Haushika Haki? The dark ink-like eyes flashed with a fleeting playfulness, looking at Dustless's face. Ling-er's face was as usual, but there was a hint of teasing in her voice. This is not nonsense. I can only make up for my devastated heart if I can awaken it. Hearing this, Dustless replied decisively without thinking. If he can't awaken Haushiku, the third draw is meaningless. Kenbenshoku and Haushiku are skills common to all human beings. That's what I'm waiting for. The sly smile on the delicate little face turned into a substantial action, and the vast and majestic breath gushed out, and the void behind her exploded into pieces in an instant. The supreme meaning emitted from the tender body. Even if the void was broken, it did not dare to heal. It has been pulling the surrounding space and gradually enlarging the cracks. Ling simply locked her momentum on Dustless and did not spread it. Otherwise, what would happen is self-evident. The extremely oppressive majestic breath pressed on Dustless, and Ling suddenly attacked. Dustless, who was unaware of it, was forced to step back again and again. His elegant and handsome face was pale, and his body was shaking and almost fell to the ground. There is always someone better than you. And there is always a mountain higher than the other. Dustless now understands what it means. The thin Ling in front of him gave Dustless more pressure than any of his previous opponents. Even the life and death enemy of Naruto's world, Marayuki, was like a lonely boat in the sea, not worth mentioning when compared to Ling in this state. Upon closer inspection, the surface of Dustless's skin showed signs of cracking due to the exaggerated deterrence. Scarlet blood seeped out of his skin along the blood vessels. So strong. This should be under the condition that she's deliberately preserving her strength. Dustless clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as the veins on his face bulged. His nostrils were panting uncontrollably. The unprecedented suppression restricted Dustless's movements. His body was suppressed by the invisible 1,000-gold boulder, making it difficult for him to move. Under the crushing pressure of this aura, Dustless felt weak and lost. A feeling of insignificance that he had never felt before invaded his mind, and a myriad of emotions surged in his heart. How could Dustless be willing to be crushed so easily like an ant after spending half his life scheming and scheming? His ferocious eyes turned blood-red, revealing an unwilling expression. Unwilling to go with the flow, he could only go against it. Dustless had experienced too much in his life. He would never give up so easily. He tried to stand up. His fearless eyes were emotionless as he looked straight at Ling. His expression was calm and fearless. Seeing Dustless resist, the vigorous aura became even more domineering. Dustless stood up and bent his body again. His whole body trembled. Even so, Dustless persisted in sweating, unwilling to give up. Going back and forth, the cycle took close to half an hour. You want me to give up despair? This kind of aura is still too weak. At least 10 times stronger. Curling his lips, Dustless's face revealed a ferocious smile. His eyes were as bright as the stars. At first he was not used to it, but as time passed, he gradually got used to it. Yin. At the same time, the power hidden in his body finally erupted after being suppressed for a long time. A roar that soared into the sky shook the heavens and the earth. It was like a divine dragon that had awakened in ancient times. The loud dragon roar was accompanied by a powerful wave of air that spread across the endless sky. It happened suddenly, and Ling did not realize that the hidden Haushika Haki in Dustless's body had suddenly awakened. Her strength was unprecedented and naturally there was no big problem. However, she was wearing a simple dress today. A strong storm blew and she was blown high. This little girl looks sacred and untouchable, but she is actually purple. There was a strange light in the depths of his eyes. Dustless was secretly speechless. The more noble a person is, the more they tend to have a shocking side. Bastard, your haushiko haki is used to lift other people's skirts. The white delicate smile was replaced by shame and anger, and she stared at Dustless fiercely. Her delicate body trembled, and her small hands were clenched into fists. She couldn't wait to kill Dustless with one punch. Lift your skirt? Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at the angry Ling. And the white and tender skin in his mind was thrown away. He said seriously and indifferently, your thin arms and legs, sorry, I am not interested in them for the time being. I will wait until you grow up. When the voice fell, Dustless turned and left, leaving Ling, a simple back. Could it be that he really didn't see it? Her face was full of suspicion, and Ling, was deeply skeptical about this. Fortunately, I am witty enough, or I will definitely be beaten by her. Turning her head, Wu Chen's indifferent face was replaced by cold sweat. It was not that she was greedy for life and afraid of death, but she couldn't avoid being destroyed by Ling, that little girl. Moreover, it was the most annoying and inhumane kind. Recalling the quiet figure of the beautiful country in his mind, Dustless's thoughts were in a trance, and he quickened his pace and swept straight towards the pavilion in front of him. Just at the same time, an unexpected enchanting figure suddenly appeared, and the space was split in a square, and the peerless beauty gracefully stepped out of it. A long time no see. His cheeks were filled with a gentle and sunny smile. Although he was a little surprised, Dustless still politely greeted her. No matter what, the person in front of him had a relationship with himself, even if it was forced. The standing figure was as cold as an iceberg, and her arm was gently raised, and then she threw out a cold flash. Kill Greybone. Chapter 439. There is no doubt that the person in front of him is Otsutsuki Kagaya, who was locked in the small black house by Dustless. Bastard, old witch, no matter what, I'm still your lover. How can you kill me so ruthlessly? Seeing how ruthless Huey was, Wu Chen cursed. There is no doubt about the power of Greybone. It is condensed by the power of yin and yang. Any creature that is stabbed will collapse and annihilate, and finally disappear with the wind. Any object that touches it will be annihilated. Golden light swept all over his body, and he easily used elementalization to avoid the oncoming bone spurs. You want to die? Hearing this, Kagaya's killing intent was even more piercing, and the slender silver hair behind her danced with the wind, turning into thousands of cold lights. She was extremely ruthless. Obviously, she has a bitter hatred for Dustless, who took her virginity. Countless strands of hair that were as hard as steel needles shot over with boundless power, but just like before, they were easily ignored by Wu Chen's elemental transformation. He stood there motionlessly as if nothing had happened. No matter what method Huey used, she couldn't shake Wu Chen. Kagaya, who doesn't know how to use armament haki, will never be able to touch Dustless. After so long, I still have such a deep hatred. With a helpless sigh, Dustless turned into shining particles and fell beside Kagaya. In order to prevent her from taking the opportunity to attack, his body always maintained the state of elementalization. Frankly speaking, Wu Chen didn't have any grudges against Huey Ji. However, this woman was always as cold as an iceberg. Her face was as beautiful as a flower in jade, and she always kept people away. Let me out. Otherwise your little lovers, humph. Glancing at Dustless, Huey warned with a murderous look in her eyes. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled. This was the world within the system. What Huey Ji said didn't count. The real ruler was Ling, whose strength could easily suppress Huey Ji. Huey Ji had rebelled before, but she was easily suppressed. If you have the ability, you can go out by yourself. He caressed Huey's hair carelessly and smelled her unique fragrance. His lips curled into an evil smile as he said, "If you can make me, I will let you out for some fresh air." Dustless was obviously fooling her. So far, she didn't have the means to release the girls. Dustless's voice drifted to Huey's ears. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. At the same time, he didn't forget to blow hot air into Huey's ears. Despicable. Sensing the abnormality in her ears, Kagaya's anger burned away her rationality. She waved her hand and shot out a blazing hurricane, but it still couldn't touch Dustless's body. It floated past his body. Boom boom boom. The deafening explosion shook the entire system world. Along with the explosion, several mountains were shattered, and smoke and dust hundreds of feet high drifted into the depths of the horizon. The remaining energy waves and dust particles mixed together, turning into a violent sandstorm. It swallowed everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Her strength actually increased instead of decreasing. Dustless took a deep breath and said with an unnatural expression, "It had been quite some time since he came here." His improvement was limited. On the contrary, Huey in the system world had improved at a rapid pace. "I'm not someone like you who is tainted by the secular world. I have a pure heart and few desires. I don't have those dirty thoughts like you. My improvement speed is naturally not something a brat like you can compare to." Glancing at Dustless beside her, Huey's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. She said coldly, "When I break out of this prison, it will be the time for you to be torn into pieces. Remember this, brat." From the beginning to the end, Dustless's expression didn't change. Staring at Huey's graceful figure, he suddenly remembered the scene when he had sex with Huey in the past. "Brat." The corner of his mouth raised, revealing a teasing smile. Dustless curled his lips and said, "Old witch who doesn't mean what she says, the brat you are talking about rode you that day." 80 God's air strike. Huey's roar suddenly fell. The sky was filled with fist shadows. The air exploded and the void trembled violently. In the azure space, uncontrollable dense cracks could be seen clearly. The terrifying fists all fell on Dustless's body. The scene was the same as before. She couldn't catch Dustless's body. "If I let you out, you will kill me. If that's the case, I can't let you out of the cage. If you can turn over a new leaf and don't have the desire to conquer the world, I don't mind letting you out for some fresh air." Revealing a rueful expression, Dustless's figure gradually faded, turning into a wisp of smoke and slowly dissipating. If Huey could really abandon the past grudges, he was still willing to face it calmly. Wishful thinking. Glancing emotionlessly at Dustless who was about to collapse, Huey sneered. There was no one worthy of her repenting, especially a brat. It was even more unworthy. And she didn't think that she had done anything wrong. She subconsciously touched the root of her ears, and a dry heat suddenly burned in her heart. Her heart of Tao that had been calm for many years splashed a faint ripple. "Just a brat." The dark red lips opened slightly, and Huey's cold voice softened a little. It was much more human. Splat! Huey, who was in a trance, was stunned. Her left face was suddenly wrapped in water stains, and there was a blazing wave of air. She turned her head angrily, and what she saw was Dustless who should have disappeared. "The taste is not bad, but it's a little cold." Touching his chin, Dustless carefully tasted the residual mellow fragrance on the tip of his tongue, and said regretfully. A giant black sphere suddenly grew bigger, swallowing everything around it. A new world was born in the sphere. The furious Huey saw Dustless so smug, and naturally she didn't show any mercy. "You don't know how to be romantic. When you really repent and turn over a new leaf, I will naturally let you out." She shook her head and then sighed. Her whole body collapsed again, and there was no trace of her aura. Obviously, she really left the system world. It was 100% certain that the probability of Huey turning over a new leaf was 0. Chapter 440. Time flew by like a white steed, and in the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed by silently. Next to the smooth transparent stone table, Dustless calmly read today's morning newspaper. His hair was wet, and he was wearing white cotton pajamas. In the room, the lights were bright, and 2 figures could be clearly seen. Boa Hancock, dressed as a maid, stood gracefully beside Dustless. The time they spent together was short, and she also understood what kind of person Dustless was. He was no different from a normal human being. He didn't have the concept of being a celestial dragon's slave, and he would often show a sincere smile to her. It's a bit absurd to say it, but that's the reality. "You are too casual. You have to figure out where this place is." Her watery eyes were filled with anger as she stared at the figure resting on the sofa opposite her, her fists clenched. On the sofa, a tall man with a hat on his head leisurely crossed his legs, carrying a long black sword on his back. Apparently he had fallen asleep, and you could hear a slight snoring sound, very casual. The long black sword on his back was not an ordinary weapon, it was shining, and it exuded an awe-inspiring sword intent, giving people a feeling of invincibility. It was one of the sharpest swords in the world, the Black Sword Knight. There was no doubt that this person was Hawkeye Mihawk. Hawkeye directly ignored Boa Hancock's angry rebuke and continued to sleep, ignoring her dissatisfaction as if it didn't exist. This is interesting. The hot tea that was delivered to the corner of his mouth suddenly stopped. Dustless was quickly attracted by the headlines in the newspaper. His eyes confirmed the contents of the newspaper several times, and after confirming that he wasn't dizzy, he said, "I didn't expect that man to be captured by the Marine headquarters." 100 Beast Kaido, one of the famous pirates in the New World, was notorious for his ferocity. In the future, he would rule the world like an emperor and overlook the second half of the Grand Line as one of the four emperors. There was no doubt that his reputation and strength were at the top of the pyramid. Now that he was captured alive, Dustless's brain really short-circuited. This is not a rare thing. Kaido was captured by the Marines several times before, and the final result was that he escaped, and the prison where he was imprisoned was sunk. Hawkeye lifted the hat on his face and smelled a faint fragrance. He opened his eyes and picked up the tea on the transparent stone table and drank it. The most ridiculous thing is that the Marine once threatened to publicly execute him, but he still escaped. I heard that the Marine Fleet Admiral was scolded by the highest power of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Hawkeye casually tapped his foot on the table. He was caught by the Marines 3 or 4 times, but he was still able to escape easily. He can no longer be described as powerful. This time that man is facing the danger of being executed again. I don't know if he can perform a miracle. Dropping the newspaper in his hand, Dustless said, "You can clearly see the eye-catching words under the newspaper. The great pirate, 100 Beast Kaido, will be executed in Roguetown in 3 days." Hearing this, Hawkeye opened his eyes again, revealing a wise look. He analyzed. In the war a few days ago, the world government and the Marine headquarters lost face. I am afraid that they want to save the face of the government by executing Kaido. The war a few days ago shook the whole world. The Marine, the government, and the pirates suffered extremely heavy casualties. Whitebeard and the other pirates escaped from the encirclement, and escaped the pursuit of the world government and the Marine, or simply swaggered away, because the entire Marine headquarters and the world government were hit hard, and they couldn't stop their escape. Kaido is not Whitebeard. Even if he is executed, it won't change much of their reputation. Staring at Kaido, who was tied up like a dumpling in the newspaper, Hawkeye was puzzled. In his words, there was deep confusion and questions. Kaido is a very powerful pirate, but compared to the legendary Whitebeard, his identity, status, and strength are not a little bit worse. A group of kids playing house, it's boring enough, let them be. Shaking his head and smiling, Dustless didn't bother about the secret. The Gorosei's thinking is jumping. Ordinary people can't guess what they are thinking, not to mention this matter has nothing to do with him. Continuing to browse the other information in the newspaper, other banners immediately attracted Dustless's attention. The content of the newspaper is quite simple, just a Marine soldier in uniform, about 30 years old, carrying a Marine special long gun in his hand, wearing dark sunglasses. The content of the introduction of this ordinary soldier is also extremely simple. Marine excellent soldier, Virgo. Hancock, what is the recent movement of the Don Quixote pirates? Putting down the tea in his hand, Dustless suddenly asked, his eyes flashing with a hidden light. The Don Quixote pirates have been very low-key recently, almost fading out of people's sight, and their traces are hard to find. According to reliable news, they seem to be carrying out some kind of transaction. Marine's Vice Admiral Tsuru is tracking their traces. Although there are doubts, Hancock said seriously, this is also one of the tasks Dustless gave her. Transaction. Hearing this, Dustless frowned and then sneered. Since coming to this world, he began to pay attention to the Don Quixote pirates. Thinking of the transaction items, his breathing became heavy for a while. When he was about to instruct Hawkeye to rob them directly, the sound of leather shoes walking sounded first. In less than a few seconds, several black-clothed people came into Dustless's sight. These people are the confidants of Gorasii, 5 elder stars. It seems that you have all sent it. Staring at the documents of these black-clothed people, Dustless was relieved. This was also one of the conditions of the transaction between him and the bald Gorasii, 5 elder stars. Chapter 441. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the tall man in black in front of him with a grin on his face. Dustless needs the confidential documents in the hands of these men. Louis South Saint. This is what you need. The man in black with sunglasses said respectfully. The celestial dragons are not easy to offend. Even if he is a confidant of the Gorasii, 5 elder stars, he does not dare to violate the rules. In particular, the man in front of him is the type that is extremely difficult to provoke. Maybe the slightest offense will cause him to be killed on the spot. Celestial dragons are temperamental. They don't need a reason to kill. It depends entirely on their mood. Nodding slightly, then waving his hand, Dustless motioned for them to get out. Goodbye. Seeing that Dustless was so easy to talk to, the group of men in black also breathed a sigh of relief. Obviously, they were not used to staying with celestial dragons. They put down the confidential documents in their hands and left. To some extent, celestial dragons are more dangerous than pirates. Gotcha. He pulled open the cover wrapped outside, revealing a thick and simple book, which looked mysterious and full of vicissitudes of history. He flipped open a yellow book cover and saw a devil's fruit. Devil fruit illustration? What's the use of this kind of thing? Frowning, staring at the devil fruit illustration in the book, Hawkeye came over and asked in surprise. This kind of thing, there are countless in the outside world, and it's inconceivable that it's related to confidential documents. However, as Dustless turned the next page, Hawkeye's eyes instantly solidified. He had never seen the devil fruit before. It was strangely shaped, but its origin and history were clearly marked on it. There was even an introduction of its ability. The most detailed part was that it stated who had used it before, as well as its past achievements. The content of this devil fruit illustration seems to be more detailed. Lowering his head, Hawkeye's face was full of contemplation, and he seemed to guess something, and his expression suddenly stiffened. There is no need to be surprised. It is indeed as you imagined. The devil fruit illustration circulating in the outside world is just a miniature of it. Now this is the original state of the devil fruit illustration. Regardless of Hawkeye's expression, Dustless just flipped through the devil fruit illustration. These detailed records were not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Moreover, this strange devil fruit in front of him was not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Don't underestimate the world government. After more than 800 years, their various systems have long been perfected. They have their own intelligence system, secretly collecting devil fruit abilities from all over the world, and then writing unknown illustrations. The set of devil fruit illustrations in the outside world were also made by them. They were just used to fool the world. Of course, the contents recorded in them are still true. Seeing Hawkeye's puzzled face, Dustless explained faintly. The real devil fruit illustration has actually been kept in the hands of the government. Hearing this, Hawkeye's face slightly changed. The devil fruit illustration handbook in front of him was obviously different from the ones sold in the outside world. There were all kinds of records, including the ability, origin the characters used, battle records, and even how the host died. The most difficult thing for Hawkeye to accept was that from the ancient handwriting, it was estimated to be hundreds of years old. Dustless did not care about Hawkeye and began to read the devil fruit illustration handbook information, hoping to get the ability of the 2 devil fruits stored in the Kamui space. God does not disappoint people. After about half an hour, Dustless finally found the ability of the light fruit. Unlimited regeneration, healing, and the ability to control light? Is that all? With disappointment in his eyes, Dustless was quite dissatisfied. After all, it was the ultimate devil fruit. Although the ability was still very powerful, there was still a gap between his expectations. This ability is enough to be called the ability of God. How can there be such a magical ability in the world? Hawkeye, who came over, was in disbelief, staring at the light fruit. In contrast to the disappointed Dustless, his tone was full of astonishment. Unlimited regeneration. This ability is indeed no different from God's. The Devil Fruit Illustration Handbook, sold in the outside world, has never recorded a devil fruit like the light fruit. That's right. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. After all, it's just a devil fruit. It can achieve unlimited regeneration, which is beyond human understanding of devil fruit. In particular, it also has the ability to control light, which should coincide with Dustless's glint fruit. In his mind, he suddenly remembered another ultimate devil fruit in the Kamui space. Dustless's heart spontaneously gave birth to expectations. His celestial dragon's cheapskate father exploded because of this unknown devil fruit. How strange its ability is can be imagined. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Wu Chen's face fell. It's not there. Dustless, who flipped through for a long time, did not find the introduction of another devil fruit. His face was gloomy, looking at the heavy ancient book, his eyes flashed with coldness. Is it possible that the 5 old men deliberately tore it? His eyes sharpened, trying to find the tear marks, but still found nothing. For a time, Dustless also fell into deep doubts. The devil fruit that is enough to explode the strength of a marine admiral is indeed extremely strange. After hesitating for a long time, Dustless chose Hancock to immediately find someone to copy it. There are many unheard of devil fruits that are completely beyond imagination. It is necessary to record them in detail. Some of them are even stronger than Tremor fruit and Dark fruit. No, maybe that strange fruit doesn't belong to the scope of devil fruit itself. Dustless secretly guessed that the devil fruit only has the form of a devil fruit. Whether its appearance, structure, or other aspects, it is different from the devil fruit. Stable update, full of integrity. Chapter 442. After Hancock and Hawkeye were sent away by Dustless, in the dead room, Dustless was alone, integrated with the darkness, and his breath completely disappeared. Without using eyes to deliberately look, it is impossible to detect the existence of Dustless. Hancock was naturally sent by Dustless to copy the Devil Fruit illustration book, which recorded countless devil fruits with heaven-defying abilities. Naturally, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, could not be taken advantage of. As for Hawkeye, he was sent by Dustless to grab the Surgeon fruit. Dustless is still quite envious of the Surgeon fruit. As for the so-called Mariehua National Treasure, Dustless is not interested in it. He doesn't know what the specific content is, and it's difficult to grab it. Cleverness makes a mistake. I'm too persistent. With a self-deprecating smile, Dustless sighed silently, recalling the surface engraved with flowers and trees, as well as the dragon riding the clouds. The endless doubts in Dustless's heart disappeared. The moment he saw the mysterious ultimate devil fruit, the preconceived idea of the devil fruit has been deeply rooted. After all, only the devil fruit in the world has such a form. It also shows that no matter what you do, you can't rely on pure perceptual speculation, but under absolute reason, you can make a correct and reasonable explanation based on your own subjective analysis. The world is impermanent. Even if Dustless knows what will happen in the future, fate is also tortuous and changeable, and it is impossible for all to develop according to the original historical trajectory. But everything is interesting because it can escape from control. If it is exactly the same as what I expect, then what fun is there? Opening the window, Dustless went straight to the balcony, drank the dark red liquid in the delicate transparent cup, stared at the dark night sky in the distance, and the corners of his mouth evoked a smile. It is because there are always unexpected accidents that the world is colorful and full of vitality. A gentle night breeze blew from the front, causing Wu Chen's disheveled hair to flutter in the wind. Under the dark night sky, that pair of sparkling eyes were especially conspicuous, like a resplendent pearl, attracting the attention of others. When Dustless was admiring the moon, suddenly, the void in the distance strangely swept aflame. Boom boom boom. In the dark night sky, a harsh roar resounded through the sky, and an unprecedented hot cloud of fire rose strangely over Mariehua. The violent vibration spread out, and the whole Mariehua trembled violently and became a mess. What's the situation? Could it be that it was invaded again? It's also the headquarters of the world government. It's too outrageous to be invaded one after another. Staring at the giant fireball in the distance, Dustless was speechless for a while, and then there was a gloating smile on the corner of his mouth. With such a big movement, the Gorosei was inevitably condemned by the celestial dragons. This so-called headquarters of the world government, the defense was too fragile, and it was invaded every few days. Especially the vibration this time was more exaggerated than the last tiger invasion. The majestic perception spread out, and the center of the explosion was quickly exposed to Dustless's eyes. It turned out to be the office of the Gorosei. No one should be stupid enough to talk about flowers and the moon with the Gorosei. The gloating smile froze. Dustless frowned, and he was puzzled as he muttered to himself. The center of the explosion was the place where the Gorosei usually worked. Master Dustless. An eager voice suddenly sounded. In this world, Dustless's name was Royce South Saint. Only people from the previous world could call out Dustless's previous name. Looking at the place where the sound came from, a strange white figure of a person, or a monster with half of his body buried in the ground entered Dustless's sight. Looking up, it was White Zetsu. The only difference was that the White Zetsu in front of him was created by Dustless through Yin-Yang escape. What's the matter, White Zetsu? I didn't send you to monitor the movements of the Gorosei. You. Is it possible that the previous explosion was caused by you? The dissatisfied expression suddenly stiffened, and Dustless noticed that White Zetsu's lower body was burned. His voice lowered, and then he remembered the previous explosion and asked gloomily. The 5 old guys seem to be wrong. I just sneaked in and was discovered by them. White Zetsu smiled bitterly, recalling the shocking scene just now, and his forehead was still sweating. If he hadn't left in advance, he would have been killed by the Gorosei. White Zetsu was confident in his ability to hide, but he didn't expect the Gorosei to be so extraordinary. When he tried to spy on the content of their conversation, he was discovered, and then there was a merciless beating. As a result, the lower half of his body was burned into nothingness. Impossible, according to my guess. Those 5 guys should be at the level of the Yonko. There is no reason for them to detect you. Dustless naturally wouldn't forget the great battle a few days ago. The bald Gorosei was even beaten by Dustless. Dustless estimated that he was on par with Kaido and Biga's mom. Now that he could discover White Zetsu's spying, it was obvious that his strength was not as simple as it seemed. Deliberately hiding their strength. It seems unlikely. They have no reason to do so. But the 5 old men can find you. There is indeed a problem. White Zetsu's ability to hide was beyond doubt. He was absolutely a master in 10,000. The Gorosei could detect him, which indirectly showed that they were mysterious and extraordinary. I don't know much about the specifics. White Zetsu said bitterly. His strength was average. His greatest ability was to spy on intelligence and escape. After Haushiko-haki reaches the realm of thousand tempering, you can hear the sound of all things in the world, which is also an ability called Domineering Domain. All abilities will be qualitatively improved. Is it possible that the 5 of them can do it too? Frowning, Dustless thought of the ability used by Akagami, Red Hair, a few days ago. Even if the bald Gorosei did not use Haushiko-haki when he fought Whitebeard that day, it does not mean that he does not know it. People at the level of the Gorosei have no Haushiko-haki. Chapter 443. The usual office of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has now become a pile of rubble, and the ground has become charred black, with a nauseating burnt smell. On the charred ground, 5 tall figures of different stature are clearly visible. With them as the center, the area with a radius of hundreds of meters is barren. What's even more strange is that all objects have collapsed, both with and without vitality. We haven't moved our muscles and bones for many years, and the world has forgotten us old bones. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a birthmark on his forehead said gloomily. At this moment, he was particularly strange, surrounded by purple flames, and his eyes were scarlet, giving people a feeling of horror. There were still purple flames in the surroundings that had yet to disperse. Clearly, this was his masterpiece. This purple flame is particularly terrifying, like a deep-sea beast with fangs. Even ordinary gravel is decomposed by this dangerous flame, and is strangely swallowed. It's really lawless. The world government's base camp has become a kindergarten. We seem to have become the administrators of the kindergarten. The old man with long hair and beard, who was obviously much taller than the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elder stars, said with a little ridicule in his tone, but everyone can hear the anger that is enough to annihilate everything. They deliberately let Fishman Tiger attack Mariehua. But this time it is obviously an enemy invasion, which is tantamount to a direct slap in their face. Well, I burned half of that guy's body. You know my ability, he will die. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a birthmark on his forehead showed his murderous intent. His tiger body shook, and the purple flame behind him shone brightly, and any matter around him was burned into nothingness by him. The other 4 Gorosei, 5 elder stars, nodded in agreement. It doesn't matter. The government has become the laughingstock of the whole world. These damaged reputations must be restored. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. You understand this truth. The old man with long hair and beard said with a worried tone. As the highest rulers, they naturally understand the importance of people's hearts. Once it is scattered, it is more serious than the entire Marine army being destroyed. Ignorant, this is a self-inflicted trap. Let the pirates fight among themselves. But the idea is good, but the result is cruel. Not only did we not get any benefits, but we also suffered a double loss. The golden-haired Gorosei casually sat on a stone, crossed his arms in front of him, and vented his dissatisfaction. Underestimating the wisdom of those big pirates will make you suffer. The complexion of the bald 5 elder stars, who wore a white Taoist robe, changed greatly when he heard this. He was the one who had commanded the battle a few days ago, so the implication of these words was obviously aimed at him. That's funny. Didn't you agree to my proposal? Obviously, the 5 elder stars were not to be trifled with. His words were sharp as he retorted. Now you're giving advice after the fact. Boring. If talking could change the world, Roger would have died decades ago. The 5 honored stars were clearly people who loved sabers. Although the first-generation ghost blade that had been robbed by Dustless a few days ago had already disappeared, he was now holding a simple and unadorned long saber in his hand. A saber that could catch the eye of a top-level swordsman like him was definitely not something ordinary. Hearing this, the golden-haired Gorosei's face was filled with anger. He was about to have a good argument when a bland voice came first. We have worked together for so many years. There is no need to talk about such trivial things. Let's discuss how to deal with the aftermath. We have been provoked by the pirates one after another. If we don't respond, the consequences will be unimaginable. The Gorosei with a scar on the left side of his face and a hat always remained silent. Seeing the possibility of a quarrel between the two, he interrupted in a deep voice. Kaido's identity and status are not enough to wash away the flaws and stains of the government. We must focus on other aspects. Kaido's status today is ordinary. He has not reached the height of an emperor in the future. Especially now, Kaido is just a prisoner. Even if this prisoner is unreliable, he is still a prisoner. You don't have to worry about this. The reputation of the government will not be affected. The 5 elder stars holding the saber smiled mysteriously. The viciousness in his eyes was clearly visible. His face suddenly became gloomy. As long as that man is executed on the same day, all the reputation can be saved. A small amount did not make a gentleman, and a great man had to be ruthless. The so-called peace and stability were in fact obtained through the darkness that no one knew about. However, the top battle power of the Marine is not enough. It is necessary to promote a new admiral. The bald Gorosei with the saber suddenly said. After the war a few days ago, he realized that the Marine's battle power is too fragile, especially the top figures. Today, the admiral is only supported by the Buddhist warring states. Although Garp has the strength of an admiral, he is still a vice-admiral. As for the former Admiral Blackwrist Z, he is no different from a retired admiral. and is responsible for teaching the Marine freshmen. It is not polite to say that a legendary figure like Whitebeard can be compared to the Pirate King. If he was in his heyday, the 3 admirals together would not be enough to play with him. Indeed. The other 4 Gorosei nodded in agreement. In the face of the New World's pirates, the combat power of the Marine headquarters is indeed obviously insufficient. This war has explained everything. It is good to break them one by one, but in the face of the pirates, the Marine headquarters is really vulnerable. But there is no suitable candidate. Kazan, Borsellino, Sakazuki of the Marine headquarters. These people are strong, but they have not reached the level of an admiral, and their age and qualifications are not enough. The blonde Gorosei said. He agreed to add an admiral. It can increase the strength of the Marine, and it can also deter people. The effect is huge. Naturally, there is a candidate. The bald Gorosei with the saber smiled and said confidently. He did not say who he would choose. Chapter 444. Mariehua, which should have been peaceful and quiet, suddenly became chaotic and noisy after White Zetsu stirred it up. The riot continued until dawn and did not stop. With the existence of the heretic Fisher Tiger, the celestial dragons learned to be smart and hid in the tunnels prepared in advance. Looking around, the only celestial dragons who can remain calm in Mariehua is Dustless. Not everyone has his supercilious strength. The higher the status, the more afraid of death. The celestial dragons are this true portrayal. They were born as descendants of God. If they are slaughtered by mere mortals, their end will be too miserable. In the brightly lit villa, after a casual and simple wash, fatigue and sleepiness also swept through his limbs and bones. When Dustless was about to rest, an inexplicable figure suddenly came into sight. The one who confessed without being pressed was Wu Chen's old acquaintance. What a rare guest. Looking up, Dustless said indifferently. His tone was like a weasel paying a New Year's greetings to the chicken, which directly made the latter's face twitch. Looking up, it was the bald Gorosei with a sword. Outrageous, it's really. Forget it, I won't bother with him. Staring at Wu Chen's fearful face, the old face of the bald 5 elder stars holding the saber twitched. It was more uncomfortable than eating 100 pounds of flies. Every time he met with Wu Chen, he seemed to be the one who suffered losses. Now Wu Chen was the one who made the countercharge. He was especially depressed. Thinking of the major events related to the life and death of the world government, the bald Gorosei with a sword had to sit down and swallow his anger. 800 years ago, the 20 kings established the world government. To some extent, the celestial dragons and the world government are no different from a family. After saying that, the bald quintet with the sword looked at Dustless. After seeing him nod in approval, he secretly thought that there was hope. Then he reorganized his thoughts and said heavily, "The world government is now facing an unprecedented dilemma, and we still need the help of Louis South wholly. Losing prestige is not a casual thing. It is definitely more dangerous than the collapse of the Marine headquarters. It means that all over the world, the orders of the world government and their laws may not be carried out. In that case, he would be no different from a commander without an army. Of course, we're all a family. Of course, we have to love each other." Hearing this, Wu Chen crossed his legs and grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. He said seriously, "When one side is in trouble, all sides will help. What's more, we are all relatives. When the government is in trouble, we the celestial dragons naturally have to do what we can." Dustless's expression was extremely serious. The bald quintet with the sword had doubts in his eyes. He didn't believe that Dustless would be so great. Even so, he still expressed his inner worries. Royce South is also well aware of the battle a few days ago. The gap between the Marines and the group of lawless pirates is really huge. It is good to be able to break them one by one. But once the group of pirates attacks together, in short, the current Marine lacks top-level combat power. Without wasting his breath, the bald quintet said directly, "So the government hopes that Louis South wholly can serve as an admiral of the Marine." The bald quintet with the sword said something amazing, and his loud voice was affirmative. Obviously, he was not joking. Of course, there is an essential difference between an admiral and an admiral. This is an official position specially made for you, honorary admiral. The honorary admiral of the Marine headquarters. This is the first honor since ancient times. Honorary admiral? His face was strange, but he didn't directly refuse the quintet. He asked with interest, "What is the difference between this honorary admiral and the Buddhist warring states of the Marine headquarters?" "There must be a difference. There is an essential gap." Seeing that Dustless did not simply refuse, the pressure on his chest disappeared. The quintet with the sword picked up the tea on the stone table and drank a few mouthfuls to moisten his throat. Honorary Admiral is specially set up for Lewis South, Holy. You don't need to obey any orders from the Marine headquarters. All kinds of busy tasks will not fall on your head. In addition, you can enter any Marine base at any time. With a slightly red face, the old man with the sword introduced, "This is the most generous condition in history. If you want to perform any task, you can perform any task. If you want to leave the burden, you can leave the burden. It's completely at will. The only admiral who is so free and unfettered is Dustless. It's tailor-made. What Lewis South St. needs to do is to lend a helping hand when the Marine headquarters is under threat. The premise is that the enemy is attacking the Marine headquarters. The rest of the time you are free and will not be disturbed." Hearing this, Dustless nodded thoughtfully. Such generous conditions are really good. Without doing anything, he can get the highest position of an admiral. It's really good, and he only needs to act when the Marine headquarters is threatened, which is in line with the lazy character of the celestial dragons. However, there is a big problem. This so-called honorary admiral seems to have no power at all. In other words, it's in name only. It's not a problem to be the so-called honorary admiral, although I don't care about the power of the Marine headquarters. But his eyes fell on the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Dustless smiled, showing a fox-like sly smile. "This, if you have something to say, just say it." The proud look froze. The bald quintet with the sword asked unnaturally. He knew that if he wanted to do something for Dustless, he must pay enough chips to impress him. "As you said before, we are all one family. Naturally, I can't say two things. Being an honorary admiral is my relief to your government and the Marine. Now it's your government and the Marine's turn to relieve me." Chapter 445. In the face of Dustless's high price, Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can only compromise. The only thing worthy of the 5 elder stars' consolation was that Wu Chen rarely had any ideas about his treasured saber. Only then did his heart, which was in a state of turmoil, sink like a stone into the sea and become abnormally calm. Although Dustless's price is enough to make him and the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elder stars, vomit blood, they can reluctantly accept it. The next morning, the most conspicuous banner in the newspaper, the latest movement of the Marine, shocked the world. The content of the newspaper is quite simple and casual, just a few understated words, but the fluctuation that came out is unprecedented. The pirates of the New World were shocked by this sudden news. The large black font is clearly visible. Marine Headquarters New Admiral, Royce South. The figure left on the banner is thin and looks very thin. Even less than 2 meters tall, which is the opposite of the 3 or 4 meters tall man. His entire body was painted black, and it was obvious that it was intentional. This mysterious unknown new admiral, for a time, became the focus of the whole world. Since he can become an admiral, he can't be ordinary. In particular, this mysterious character obviously didn't climb step by step. The Marine has never heard of such a person. Obviously, he was directly promoted to the position of an admiral. The current Admiral Sengoku and the former Black Wrist Z, both of them have confronted the Pirate King Roger. Even if this admiral is not as good as Sengoku and Z, he can easily change the pattern of the world. The Grand Line, an unknown island covered with ice and snow. Royce's surname. Isn't this the surname of the Celestial Dragon's family? Is it a coincidence? On the white snow, there are messy footprints. Looking forward, a row of figures in front is clearly visible. One of them is wearing a pink feather, walking among the crowd. Apparently, he is their boss. It is the Don Quixote pirates. Hey, Brother Ming, the Marine unexpectedly has a new admiral. And it seems that he is a mysterious character. Maybe he is just a street goods. This kind of thing, the Marine used to do a lot of things. The sloppy treble always had doubts. The Marine headquarters was familiar with conspiracies and tricks. And this kind of boring trick has never been used before. You're really trying to fool the world. There's no need to just show off your back. With a flick of his finger, the newspaper suddenly exploded into pieces and slowly fell to the ground like snow. Doflamingo casually stepped the newspaper pieces into the snow. What he cared about the most was not the choice of great general, but the person's surname. It should be a coincidence. The Lois family seems to have only one child left. They shouldn't make such a sensational joke to please the world. The guys in the Marine won't allow the celestial dragons to make trouble. Doflamingo secretly guessed. The Lois family was also a celestial dragon family. The celestial dragons gave the world the impression that they were lazy and ignorant. Doflamingo also thinks so. He never thought that there could be an admiral among the Tenryubito. And even if the Marine headquarters is afraid of the Tenryubito, it is absolutely impossible to let an incompetent waste be an admiral. But then again, that guy Corazon is really a spy sent by the Marine. Treble's sloppy face was cautious, with a hint of hatred. Most pirates were heartless, but there were some who valued friendship. People who believed in traitors and spies. And people who could control their emotions very well would also go berserk. Don't worry about him. After you get the surgeon fruit, Corazon. The road is your own choice, and you have to pay the price. Blue veins appeared on his forehead, and Doflamingo's murderous intent was revealed. The biting chill dropped the temperature of the surrounding space to the freezing point. The blue veins on his forehead seemed to have worms wriggling, and he was extremely scared. He treated Corazon as a close relative, but the latter was a spy sent by the Marine. The last conscience in Doflamingo's heart disappeared with Corazon's betrayal. At the same time, the pirates all over the world also learned that the Marine headquarters had added a mysterious admiral, but their thoughts were very different. Some are naturally worried. After all, it's a profession that is opposite to each other. The enemy is big, and pirates will inevitably think about danger and peace. Some are also holding the mentality of laughing. All in all, after such deliberate publicity by the world government, the name Royce South has spread all over the world like a hurricane. Dustless, the originator, is now leisurely, living the life of a second generation. The life of a Tenryubito is so free and decadent, and all kinds of ugly life are used to it in front of them. In the super-large auction house. What good things can there be in this place? In the luxurious seat, Dustless was quite uncomfortable. At the moment he was wearing bulky clothes with bubbles, obviously dressed as a Tenryubito. The group of people sitting next to him are all Tenryubito. They are as big as mountains. Looking around, there are no less than a dozen of them. However, compared with these fat mountains, Dustless is obviously a beautiful scenery. Forget it, since I'm here I'll take it easy. Dustless looked at the auction list sent by the staff of the auction house. Most of them were strong slaves and all kinds of beautiful women, including various legendary swords. There were even a few devil fruits, but most of them were ordinary goods. Suddenly, Dustless's impatient eyes flashed with a strange light, and the pages in his hand stopped and fell on a young woman with blonde hair. This person's appearance was extremely beautiful, and she could be considered to be a beauty that could captivate birds and beasts. However, what Wu Qin cared about wasn't her appearance, but because Wu Qin knew this person. Moreover, if it wasn't for the fact that he had many important matters to deal with now, he would even personally capture this woman. The queen of the Fishman Island, Princess Odoheim, was caught, and it seems that she is being auctioned as a slave. This is very interesting. Chapter 446. Dustless narrowed his eyes and thought of the past of Princess Odoheim. After a while, the corners of his mouth outlined a meaningful smile. The ability of the fishman is quite strange. Odoheim was born with observation haki, and her daughter Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, Sea King. How can she be caught in the sea? Closing the list of auction items, Dustless can't help but sigh that the world is fickle. The princess of the Fishman Island was caught as a slave. Fate is really changeable and bizarre. Time passed unknowingly. After a few minutes, the auction began in a hurry. There were as many as a dozen celestial dragons waiting, and they didn't dare to delay. If the celestial dragons get angry and smash the auction house, they can only admit defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this auction house. After a simple brewing, the person who presided over the auction slowly appeared under all the eyes. It was a black-haired beauty with a good figure. The tall figure immediately attracted a lot of prying eyes and screams, and the cold scene finally boiled up. The performance of the celestial dragons was mediocre. They were all ugly to challenge the human vision. Their bodies were bloated and no different from pigs. However, each of them was sitting on 3,000 beauties. There were a lot of wives that could captivate the birds and beasts. Only Dustless is now an anomaly. He doesn't have a wife. In the world of celestial dragons, changing women is as simple and casual as eating and drinking water. First of all, the first auction item is the Zoan dog fruit. The starting price is 100 million berries. The beautiful auctioneer introduced the devil fruit in her hand. She used a seductive tone to drive the atmosphere of the auction. Coupled with her hot figure, the effect was unparalleled. The price of the devil fruit increased exponentially. I'll pay 130 million berries. In order to get a smile from the beauty, I'll pay 180 million berries. I'll pay 200 million berries. You dregs, shut up, I'll pay 500 million berries. After a red-faced quarrel, in the end, there were celestial dragons who couldn't listen to the buzzing of these flies and simply hammered the price. He didn't spend money to buy the devil fruit, but to buy silence. There doesn't seem to be anything good. Closing his eyes, Dustless knew that the auction of Princess Odoheim was the highlight, and it was deliberately suppressed at the end, and then he closed his eyes to rest. Time passed quickly, and he didn't know how long it took. Dustless's thoughts returned to his senses, and with the staging of the final highlight, he slowly opened his dark eyes. The next item to be auctioned is a fishman, and it's a goldfish with a starting price of 500 million berries. The meticulously made ground suddenly caved in, and the round transparent pool poked its head out. The figure swimming in the water was the princess of the Fishman Island, Odoheim. The only difference was that there was a collar around her snow-white neck that indicated her status as a slave. At this moment, Princess Audie's face was full of anxiety, and her shining eyes were full of despair, especially when she saw the fiery eyes of the celestial dragons. Her heart was full of despair. 600 million berries. A celestial dragon roared. This young master offers 800 million berries. Another celestial dragon was also unwilling to be outdone and coveted. I'll pay. Wuchen just stared at Princess Audie indifferently. His dead eyes flashed with surprise, and his face was strange. The majestic perception power shrouded her body. He was surprised to find that Princess Odoheim in front of him was pregnant, and what surprised Dustless the most was that she was already pregnant, but she was still a virgin. This is strange. Touching his chin, Dustless stared at Princess Odoheim. After a while his brow wrinkled. Princess Odoheim's body seemed to be very strange, and there was a gap between it and the human body. For example, the future Blackbeard Marshal D. Tinker's body structure is also very special. Help me. A crisp and sweet cry for help resounded in his mind. Dustless was slightly stunned and looked up. It was Princess Odoheim who was staring at him with watery eyes. Why did she ask me for help? So that's why. The corner of his mouth twitched. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and the doubts in his eyes turned into a color of understanding. Compared with this group of fat and bloated celestial dragons, Dustless is probably the only human existence. Therefore, Princess Odoheim chose to ask for help from Dustless. Compared with these hungry celestial dragons, Dustless, who has never bid, looks more reliable. Sure enough, it's a mysterious race. They are born with observation haki, and they can speak directly to me. With a flash of surprise in his eyes, Dustless was quite surprised, and then nodded towards Princess Odoheim, indicating that she didn't need to worry about her safety. I'll pay 1.5 billion berries. Biting his teeth, a celestial dragon gave a desperate price, and then looked down at everyone with a proud face, warning and pride in his eyes. 3 billion berries. His indifferent voice carried indifference, yet it was gentle, yet it carried some sort of indescribable charm, and it spread throughout the entire auction hall, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. The meaning of this emotionless voice was as if 30 stones were not worth mentioning. Looking at the place where the voice sounded, a handsome celestial dragon came into view. With a knife-like face and a handsome face, it was Dustless Wooey. Fart, where did you get so many berries? An angry roar came over. Looking up, it was the celestial dragon who had bid 1.5 billion berries. At this moment, he was pointing a golden pistol at Dustless and asked fiercely, "Berries? This kind of thing is just a simple word for me. It has no meaning at all." Without looking at the furious celestial dragon, Dustless just snapped his fingers casually, and the space behind him suddenly surged with dense ripples. Countless weapons made of gold floated in the void, and the golden flashes of the pulsating golden light turned the entire auction hall golden. "I lack everything, but I don't lack money." Chapter 447. It's not that there are no weapons made of gold, on the contrary, there are many, but such a large number is the first time they have seen it. Even a group of celestial dragons are equally stunned. Indulging in the world of luxury, it's also the first time they have seen so many weapons made entirely of gold. Clang, clang, clang. Immediately, under everyone's stunned gaze, all the weapons floating in the sky fell and piled up into a mountain. "Is 3 billion berries enough?" The cold voice sounded again. Dustless's eyes fell on the woman who presided over the auction. Their value is far more than 3 billion berries. Swallowing a breath, the black-haired woman who presided over the auction was stunned. "Money is definitely good, but you must have a life to take it. If you dare to blacken the celestial dragons in front of you, you can only blame yourself if you are killed. These weapons made entirely of gold are handmade, and are of great value. They have to be multiplied several times on the basis of gold to estimate their value. 3 billion is naturally the price of this mermaid, and the rest is your reward for pleasing this uncle." Dustless waved his hand impatiently, doing the posture of a nouveau riche, looking like a fool with a lot of money, although it's ridiculous that celestial dragons are like this. The people in the auction house heard the words and their mouths twitched. They looked at the mountains of gold weapons, and their breathing was stagnant. No one could be relieved in front of tens of billions of berries. "This woman, I'm going to take her away now." With a gentle stroke of his thumb, the large water tank on the ground floated up strangely and slowly moved toward Dustless's position. Regardless of everyone's reaction, he went straight to the exit of the auction house. And, as if remembering something, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped. He turned his head, revealing a cold half of his face, and the hostility around him made strange changes around him. Everyone's heart was in their throats, and there was a feeling of being on the back. "Although an idiot like you is not worthy of me asking for help." Cold ripples appeared in the void and Wu Chen's voice spread out. "I didn't intend to kill a person like you who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, but you actually pointed a gun at me. Go to hell. Poochie. Poochie." The golden weapon that fell to the ground suddenly became restless, flashing a mysterious halo. The celestial dragon who had pointed a gun at Dustless was about to open his mouth and scold Dustless, but suddenly he felt pain in his body and his vitality was rapidly draining. Looking closely, his entire body had been pierced through by 10 sharp weapons. "You will regret this." His hysterical song resounded throughout the silent auction house, but he still fell to the ground unwillingly. His eyes had completely lost their luster, and his body had been pierced through by 10 weapons. Even a living immortal would not be able to save him. Hearing the last roar, Dustless just smiled and didn't even turn his head. A mere celestial dragon was not worthy of his attention. When the Tenryubito was killed, the entire auction house immediately became restless and began to flee. It won't be long before the admirals of the marine headquarters come to find trouble. I seem to have chosen the wrong person. I've miscalculated. In the transparent water tank floating in the air, Princess Aji's delicate face changed slightly. She had only hoped that Dustless would be able to lend a helping hand. Although she had been rescued, it seemed she had stepped into a deeper hell. Looking at Dustless vaguely, Princess Aji's heart was particularly depressed. She found that she was really naive. Even if the Tenryubito in front of her was really different, he was still a Tenryubito. In particular, Dustless was bold enough to kill Tenryubito at will, which was far beyond her imagination. And it was for such a frivolous reason that Tenryubito held a gun. Many young people had already been popular in the world. At the harbor, Dustless stepped on the big ship that had been waiting for a long time in advance, and the water tank floating in the sky was naturally the same. After a while, there was a harsh whistle, and the ship began to move slowly toward Mariehua, and the chaotic island behind him was left behind. In a warm room with spacious facilities, Dustless circled around the huge water tank, sometimes showing a look of wonder, sometimes showing a look of contemplation and covetousness. The corner of his mouth raised a teasing smile, and an energy fluctuation came out of his finger, and the delicate glass tank suddenly burst. Boom! Princess Aji, who was caught off guard, fell directly to the ground and groaned in pain. To be honest, I really have an interest in dissecting you. The body structure of an unmarried child, the crazy scientist in the Marine headquarters should be very curious. The casual words suddenly made Princess Aji's face pale. I can promise you anything you want. Biting her silver teeth, Princess Aji said seriously. People have to bow their heads under the eaves. What's more, this time she left the Fishman Island rashly. She also asked the master of the world government, Tenryubito. Dustless smiled with satisfaction when he heard the words and whispered, "You know what's good for you, and the 3 billion berries were not spent in vain." The soft laughter had a mysterious magic, and a faint ripple spread. At the moment of contact with Princess Aji, the slave collar on her white neck also fell. My request is very simple. I am not interested in you at all, but the child in your body is the price of 3 billion berries, and the reward for saving you. In addition, I can send someone to safely send you to the Fishman Island. Without the slightest concealment, Dustless directly stated his purpose. At the same time, I can also sign the document that you came for. The Fishman Island will coexist peacefully with humans from now on, and the fishmen will no longer be enslaved by humans. This condition is not ungenerous, but there is no smile on Princess Aji's face. She can't do it at the cost of her child. Sorry, that's impossible. Even though she was already a prisoner, Princess Aji's voice was still 30% pleasing to the ear and 70% elegant, making one feel relaxed and happy. Even if she is a prisoner, or even reduced to the level of a slave, she still has an indescribable majesty. Kneel down and vote for the heroine. Chapter 448. Hearing this, Dustless's face outlined an imperceptible arc. It was impossible to make this strong woman yield in a few words. You don't agree? His eyes narrowed, and the light from his eyes was very dangerous, making Princess Aji confused. The thinking of the celestial dragons is jumping up and down, and they change their faces faster than flipping a book. You don't seem to figure out your current identity. His voice was low, Dustless sneered, and there was evil in his eyes. I am a celestial dragons, a synonym for ghosts and beasts, and you are my slave. Anything is possible. Looking at Princess Aji, looking at her graceful body, Wu Chen said with a smile full of deep meaning. Perhaps the character of the fishman is too naive and romantic, and her mind is simple. Princess Aji just stared at Dustless blankly, and did not understand the meaning of Dustless's words. That's it. Poochie. The corner of her clothes then shattered, and her snow-white skin was exposed under Dustless's line of sight. Her white skin was tinged with red, and her jade-like bones were incomparably beautiful. Looking closely, the corner of Princess Aji's clothes had split open. You shameless, despicable villain. Hurriedly covering the place where the spring light was exposed, Princess Aji glared at Dustless, and her delicate face trembled with anger. Staring at the indifferent face of Dustless, she suddenly realized that describing him as a despicable villain was simply a slander. In her mind, she remembered the brutal past of the celestial dragons, and her heart fell to the bottom of the abyss. Although you are pregnant, the celestial dragons are all hungry wolves. Even if you are pregnant, it is not impossible for them to lay their hands on you. Anyway, you are just a slave. This kind of thing is not unique. Ignoring the angry and desperate Princess Aji, Dustless said with a smile. If you dare to have such an idea, I will kill myself immediately. Staring at Dustless without fear, Princess Aji decisively warned, and at the same time, doubts inevitably arose in her heart. She really didn't know what Dustless wanted to do with the child in her belly. I already have one. If I can die, you can give it a try. Hearing this, Wu Chen spoke tirelessly and calmly. His tone was full of confidence. Moreover, Princess Aji was a kind-hearted person. These words were only used to scare Dustless, hoping that he would dispel the thoughts in his heart. Even if she was not afraid of death, the child in her belly was innocent. But it's useless to have you now. Her ability hasn't awakened, so she can't be used. It's also troublesome to adopt her temporarily. After a moment of silence, Dustless's words let Consort Aji see the dawn of hope. It was not hard to see that he had no intention of imprisoning Consort Aji. According to Dustless's guess, Neptune's ability is similar to Haushika Haki. It does exist in Shirahoshi's body, but it still needs to be awakened on its own. If it can't be awakened, it is useless to stay with Dustless. After thinking about it, he chose to let nature take its course. He is not a god, and the awakening of Neptune's ability needs an opportunity. Before that, I must leave my mark on you and your mother. 3 billion berries cannot be spent in vain. In one sentence, Princess Aji's hope was once again extinguished. Dustless's tone was beyond doubt. The power of Neptune is beyond doubt. After awakening, he can even control Neptune with a volume of more than 5,000 meters. Even if it is a bug more than 5,000 meters, it can also turn the world upside down. Princess Aji's body floated uncontrollably again, ignoring the law of gravity, and fell lightly in front of Dustless, staring at the pink beauty close at hand. Dustless was expressionless. His face, which was still lecherous before, was now lifeless like a sculpture. What are you doing? Out of instinctive fear, Princess Aji asked with a trembling voice. Dustless just chose to be silent. He stretched out his index finger, and fell on the place where the skin was exposed before. A warm touch was transmitted to the nerve endings along the thumb. After a slight shock, a black evil force passed along Dustless's thumb into Princess Aji's body. What am I doing? Of course, I am branding you and your mother as slaves. After just a few seconds, Dustless retracted his index finger, then looked up at the pink face, and said in an unquestionable tone, "From now on, you are my things. It's that simple." His handsome face was frivolous. Dustless didn't care. It was not difficult to see that if it were not for the existence of Shirahoshi in the body, Princess Aji would be a dead soul under the sword. Aji's face changed dramatically when she heard this. Suddenly, she felt that her body was controlled by some special force. If she had any thoughts of suicide or other unrealistic abilities, the special force would surge into her internal organs and mind, and her body would be out of control. In fact, it coincides with the curse that Uchiha Madara implanted in Obito's body. Remember, for me, your master is the world's aristocrat, Royce South Sage. The indifferent face was replaced by a cold storage. Dustless's simple words labeled the mother and daughter as slaves. Once they have any unrealistic thoughts, the curse in their body will surge out of Dustless's power to stop their actions. To some extent, it's also another kind of protection. In that case, you have to sign the treaty I brought. At this point, even if Princess Aji's face was full of unwillingness, she could only compromise. In the world where the strong are respected, without strength, you can only be trampled and destroyed. This is something that can never be changed. It's good to enjoy the shade under the big tree, but it's not free to enjoy the shade under the big tree, and you have to pay the price. That is, the mother and daughter will be slaves forever. The idea is still naive enough. Human and fishman can coexist with each other. This is just your wishful thinking. The hatred between the two races has been deeply rooted, and it can't be resolved by a paper treaty. Taking the treaty handed over by Princess Aji, Dustless shook his head slightly and signed his name. Female protagonist's problem-begging speed vote. Chapter 449. In the early morning of the next day, the beautiful fiery red sun fell on the surface of the sea. The surface of the water was dyed golden. The sparkling light was extremely dazzling. The sea within a radius of 10,000 miles was covered with a golden coat. It was extremely beautiful. Princess Otoji naturally rested on Dustless's ship. After knowing how shameless he was, Princess Otoji did not sleep in the middle of the night. It was not until the next day that she breathed a sigh of relief. Last night was the most difficult period of her life. Why are you so nervous? I won't eat you. Princess Otoji was temporarily placed in the cabin. Dustless swaggered in. It was just that his dressing made it difficult for people not to think wrongly. His pajamas were half naked, revealing a strong and powerful chest. Obviously, he had just woken up. What do you mean by celestial dragons don't understand etiquette and shame? No matter how good her attitude was, Princess Otoji's heart was filled with anger. Especially Dustless's casual look, as well as his reasonable expression, made her even angrier. It was no different from entering his own wife's room. Etiquette and shame? Curling his lips, Dustless sneered disdainfully. This is my territory. Naturally, I have the final say. And a mere slave dares to talk arrogantly with his master. Who is the one who doesn't understand etiquette and shame? His sharp tongue made Princess Otoji speechless. Yesterday she had been labeled as Dustless's slave. Hearing this, Princess Otoji clenched her silver teeth. There was a crystal mist in the depths of her eyes. She looked like she was about to cry. The dignified princess of the Fishman Island had become a slave. It was the biggest joke in the world. What made people sigh was that it had little effect on Dustless, a person with a heart of stone. You are free. You can leave this ship now. Glancing faintly at Princess Otoji, Dustless did not care about the latter's sluggishness. He simply turned around and left. Walking to the bow alone, he quietly stared at the bright sea. The current Princess Otoji was useless in Dustless's hands. Naturally, he did not need them. Leaving them would only add to his troubles. Is it a Navy ship? Closing his eyes, he breathed in the cool breeze from the distant seaside with a relaxed mind. After stretching his body comfortably, he opened his eyes again. Suddenly, a warship similar to the Navy appeared on the distant sea surface. The color of the hull is similar to the Navy, but the flag is obviously different. A world government ship? Dustless frowned, and he was quite surprised. The flag of the world government was clearly visible on the railing, and then he remembered what he did yesterday, and the killing intent in his eyes disappeared. Dustless killed the celestial dragons yesterday. In this world where the celestial dragons ruled, the consequences were self-evident. With the passage of time, the world government ship gradually approached. Dustless was stunned when he saw the person who came out of the cabin. They had met several times before. The admiral of the Marine headquarters, Buddha Waring states, General Sengoku won't come to arrest me, will he? Dustless asked as his eyes fell on the serious Sengoku. The celestial dragons were attacked, and the admiral of the Marine headquarters was personally dispatched. Obviously, this hard work fell on Sengoku. That's not it. Everyone is colleagues now, and the celestial dragons killed the celestial dragons. This kind of thing is not something I can manage. Hearing this, Sengoku just smiled bitterly and shook his head. The grievances of the celestial dragons were not something he could manage. The entire Marine knows that Dustless is the so-called honorary admiral, and there are definitely no more than 5 people. At present, only Admiral Kong, Garp, and Vice Admiral Tsuru, including himself, know. Even the retired Admiral Z doesn't know who he is. This is the latest order from Admiral Kong. The strong and powerful body fell on the deck, and Admiral Sengoku handed the confidential document in his hand to Dustless, and said with a somewhat envious tone, Of course, it's your freedom to participate in this mission, and no one will force you. Taking the top-secret document in his hand, he saw the order to execute Kaido. I'm not interested in participating in this kind of thing. Shaking his head resolutely, Dustless refused. He was not bored enough to watch the live broadcast of Kaido's execution, and this kind of thing can be seen through the image Den Den Mushi. According to Dustless's guess, Admiral Kong is obviously up to no good, and this is to take him as a laborer in case of accidents. But then again, looking up at the world government flag on the mast, Dustless wondered, why did Admiral Sengoku come here on the world government's ship? The Marine belongs to the world government, but it is also a separate department. The Marine's battleship naturally flies the Marine flag, and the world government's ship also has its own unique flag. I just came here. Their ship's performance is better than the Marine's, so I hitched a ride in advance. Spreading his hands, Sengoku said quite casually, with a little helplessness in his tone. As soon as his voice fell, a harsh whistle sounded on the distant sea. Looking up, it was the Marine's battleship. There have been a lot of things recently, and there are still a lot of things waiting for me to deal with the execution of Kaido. Goodbye. Facing Dustless, Sengoku's eyes flashed with a hidden color. And then he stepped out of the sea with Jeppo Moonwalk, and swept toward the Marine's battleship not far away. This is interesting, the person who can make Sengoku avoid. Looking back at the world government's battleship, Dustless said to himself with interest. Sengoku is a Marine admiral, and people who can make him feel uncomfortable must not be ordinary. Step, step, step. The sound of leather shoes walking sounded, and the strangely dressed people suddenly entered Dustless's line of sight. Looking at this group of people, his doubts turned into understanding. No wonder, Sengoku is an admiral of the Marine headquarters, and this group of people is really uncomfortable. Several figures came into sight. Dustless can barely recognize them. These people are only loyal to the celestial dragons, and the orders of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, have no effect on them. Celestial Dragon's biggest lackey, CP0, rolling on the ground and acting cute. Chapter 450. CP0 gives the world the feeling that they are a special existence in a mysterious cloak. They are rarely heard of, and what they know is very limited. They only know that they are the officials of Tenryubito, and the objects of their service and loyalty are all Tenryubito. However, the reality is different. For example, Dustless, although he is a Tenryubito, let alone order the mysterious department of CP0, he has not even heard of it. CP0 does obey Tenryubito, but people like Dustless are not the objects of their service. Royce South Saint. Just as Dustless was meditating, the emotionless voice sounded in advance, as cold as an iceberg. In a trance, Dustless felt that he was talking to a robot. Although the words were very cold, Dustless could hear that there was no hostility in the tone of these people's words. Your subordinate's hand is too long. After a long time, it was obvious that he was the leader of these people. The tallest man spoke to Dustless with a hint of warning. Is it possible that you are talking about Hawkeye? The brow frowned slightly and thought about it. At present, only Hawkeye, who is seizing the surgeon fruit, meets the conditions. Dustless just sneered again and again when he heard the warning in the other person's mouth. Staring at this group of so-called CP0, Dustless's eyes were cold and murderous. You're just a lackey. How dare you threaten me? Wu Chun sneered with an unruly smile on his face. No matter how strong these so-called CP0 are, in the end, they are the lackeys of Tenryubito. Dustless is naturally not afraid of them, and his tone is full of provocation. However, to Dustless's surprise, even if they were so ridiculed, this group of so-called CP0 did not refute. Their faces remained unchanged, and they always maintain the same indifference. Perhaps subconsciously, they have regarded themselves as the lackeys of Tenryubito. All in all, the consequences are at your own risk. There is an essential difference between the surgeon fruit and other devil fruits. The tone in the corner of his mouth was suddenly blocked. The tall CP0 suddenly realized that he was talking too much, and then closed his mouth. He turned a deaf ear to Dustless's insult, and walked into the cabin as if he didn't hear it. These people are really thick-skinned. Nothing can get through to them. Dustless looked speechless and bored. He thought that he could knock out something from these people's mouths. He didn't expect the so-called CP0 to be so afraid of the special group of Tenryubito. Dustless originally thought that as long as he said a few words of provocation, this group of people would gang up and attack him. That way, Dustless could also move his stiff body. Master, Royce South Holy Sage. as you think, did refuse your kindness. In the brightly lit cabin, the tall and elegant girl stood gracefully. Her golden hair was coiled up. She was dignified and elegant. Her temperament was noble and elegant. Her holy blue eyes were full of tranquility, like the first blooming of a green lotus. Her delicate facial features were uncanny. Even if the holy sword in her hand has not been drawn, you can feel the vicissitudes of life. There is also a mark unique to Tenryubito behind her. Obviously, she is also a Tenryubito. This person is the so-called fiancé of Tenryubito, Alice Clea. It's to be expected that you'll return empty-handed. Although I've only met him once, his impression of him has always lingered in my mind. If a few words can really make him feel at ease, it would be a fantasy. Thinking back, thinking of Dustless's deep scarlet strange eyes, Clea still has a dreamlike feeling, and his words are still in her ears. Under these eyes, any ability in the world is full of flaws, even if it is a god. Under my eyes, there is no way to hide. It's really arrogant. Clea's mouth showed a meaningful smile, and then remembered the Tenryubito who was killed by Dustless before, and sighed. Don't worry about it, let him go. Instead, the one who died is the kind of harmless small character. On the deck, Dustless stood alone and stared at the government ship in the distance. Start something. Recalling the short conversation with the CP0 before, Dustless raised his eyebrows and his expression was a little confused. It's just a surgeon fruit, there are so many involved. After a long silence, Dustless, who didn't think of anything, looked up to the sky and sighed. The abilities of some devil fruits are indeed incredible, and they have escaped the definition of the word devil fruit. The strange and unpredictable abilities are not worse than the abilities of the legendary gods. At the same time, on the other side, there was an unprecedented shock. On the island, blood was all over the ground and deep into the snow. Looking around, there were corpses with wounds all around. It was like a hell on earth, and countless people fell to the ground. The Don Quixote pirates swept in all directions with a devastating momentum, and the birdcage covering the entire island in the sky was clearly visible. Now the island is completely dead. Corazon, I asked myself to be kind to you. Why did you betray me? Also the traces of law and the surgeon fruit. Give me all of them without missing a word. Don't force me to throw the last mercy in my heart out of the sky. Doflamingo stepped on the half-dead figure under his feet, and pointed the dark muzzle at his head, and asked coldly without emotion. Looking confidently, it was his younger brother, Corazon. Betrayed you? Corazon heard the words and closed his eyes, recalling the past. The scenes of his brother shooting his father and cutting off his head, and sending it back to Mariehua were all played in his mind. It's you who betrayed your parents, not us who betrayed you, Dover. His eyes were always closed, and it seemed that seeing this so-called brother would make him sick. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face suddenly became gloomy, and the blue veins on his forehead began to bulge. He asked in a cold voice, "Give me the surgeon fruit, that's what I used to curry favor with the big people in Mariehua." Suddenly, a young figure popped up in his mind. Doflamingo roared furiously as he thought of the godly figure, who had recently risen like a comet. He was full of fascination. That devil's fruit was used to hug the big boss's leg, rolling around and acting cute. Chapter 451. Doflamingo, who took off his glasses, showed scarlet eyes, and he looked as ferocious as a ghost. In this world, there are only two possibilities if you want to live unscrupulously. The first is strong strength, and the second is a strong background. If you have both or one of them, you can be safe and unfettered in the world. Who is the person you want to curry favor with? His tone was raised a lot, and Corazon asked. Apparently, he was also curious about the person who deserved Doflamingo's favor. You don't need to know this. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. In short, the surgeon fruit must still be on this island. The dark muzzle was aimed at Corazon's heart, and Doflamingo said coldly, "Goodbye, my former brother, Corazon." The only remaining conscience in his heart disappeared, and the fetters of Doflamingo's blood were completely cut off, and his finger did not hesitate to pull the trigger. Bang bang bang, The dark muzzle emitted white smoke in succession, and several fatal bullets whistled out. Corazon's breathing also stopped, and his short life came to an end. After sweeping Corazon's body for a few seconds, Doflamingo's low voice spread throughout the world of ice and snow. The surgeon fruit is on this island. Whatever the cost, find it for me. In the luxurious and warm villa, Dustless was sitting on the soft sofa with his legs stretched. Boa Hancock was carefully pinching the tender flesh of Dustless's legs and doing nursing work. A pair of dexterous little hands pinched the standard, firm and soft, and the movements were extremely skilled. The strength of each acupoint was controlled extremely skillfully. It was neither heavy nor light, and Dustless was extremely comfortable. After a long silence, Dustless's closed eyes suddenly opened. What's wrong with Royce South? Hancock, who was very confident in her skills, suddenly tilted her head and wondered. Hancock was dressed in a black maid costume. Her graceful body was vividly displayed. Her delicate face was like a budding flower. Her eyes were as clear as water. Her eyes were particularly holy. Dustless's eyes were also different, with heat waves. Royce Southview. Seeing Dustless's hot eyes, Hancock's movements suddenly stiffened, and she instinctively retreated. In front of Dustless, thousands of mountains and rivers were in the blink of an eye. At such a close distance, Hancock naturally could not escape the devil's hands. The weak body was in Dustless's arms in an instant. His aggressive eyes were extremely sharp, and unscrupulously looked at Hancock's mature tender body. The saints said that food and sex were human nature. Naturally, Wu Chun, who had a mortal body, was no exception. The viciousness of the celestial dragons was well known throughout the world. It was not too much to say that they were stallions. Wu Chun showed a pure heart and few desires, but he was still a part of the celestial dragons. Royce South, I can help you with my hand dash. The anxious panic words were blocked by Dustless's thumb. Staring at the smiling Dustless in fear, Hancock struggled to speak, but there was a mysterious force in her mouth blocking her throat, making it difficult for her to speak. Although the touch of your little hand is good, it's too hasty. This kind of thing can't be rushed. In my opinion, it's better to use. Dustless's joking voice was suddenly blocked. At the same time, his hand gently rubbed Hancock's delicate lips. What he meant was self-evident. Just a little hand, too simple and rough. Hancock, who was nearly 18 years old, naturally understood this truth. She wanted to refute, but she couldn't open her mouth. Dustless didn't simply ask for a slave, which was already giving her face. The supremacy of celestial dragons has been deeply ingrained in her mind. After thinking about it, Hancock nodded helplessly. She had no right to refuse this kind of thing. The consequence of not knowing the so-called is to lose the most important thing. Gently touching her bare chin, under Dustless's expectant gaze, Hancock's thin lips moved. Roguetown, located near the entrance of the Grand Line. The previous generation's pirate king, Gold Roger, was born in Roguetown and was executed here. It also has a unique name. The town of the beginning and the end. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, dark clouds rolled and torrential rain raged. Even so, there were thousands of citizens and a large number of reporters gathered here. On the deliberately built execution platform of several meters high, the strong and powerful body was clearly visible. Kaido was tied with sea-stone handcuffs, and his ability was imprisoned, and his body was weak. Even if his body was imprisoned, and thousands of power was banned, Kaido was still domineering. Looking up at the sky, a pair of copper-sized eyes looked down at the people below, and a sense of heroism was born in his heart. The place where the pirate king was executed seems to be a good place to die. However, Kaido did not intend to stop here in his life. I'm not going to die. The vigorous tiger roar shook the clouds and spread throughout the world. It resounded throughout Roguetown and fell into everyone's ears. It was filled with some kind of special and mysterious power. Even the heavy rain that was falling down was stopped in an instant. This momentum. Fortunately, I caught him. Otherwise, he will be the most difficult opponent in the future. Admiral Sengoku on the execution platform was slightly stunned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. So far, there is no middle or lower level strong person in the marine who has reached this level, and the future is worrying. You Marines really think you can kill me? It's not like you haven't been caught before. If I remember correctly, I sank a lot of prisons. Turning his head, Kaido looked at Admiral Sengoku with disdain, full of contempt and ridicule. Hearing this, Sengoku just smiled, with a gloomy smile on his mouth. Yes, you're right. This time is an exception. It's because your turtle shell is too hard that the executioner will be the old man himself. Chapter 452. Kaido is an extremely dangerous character. His ability is extremely powerful. He has been captured by the Marines several times. However, in the end he escaped with his powerful ability and strength. Not only that, he retaliated by directly sinking the prison that once imprisoned him. It is self-evident how fierce he is. If you think you can escape from my hands, you can try. Sengoku's eyes fell on Kaido, and he said indifferently. The observation haki spread out silently, and Sengoku Admiral sneered secretly. Pirates will always be pirates, they are all rats, and it is difficult for them to become great things. In the dense crowd below, Sengoku's observation haki silently brushed past, and even the slightest flaw in the crowd could not escape his eyes. There is a road to heaven but you don't walk, there is no door to hell but you throw yourself into it. As a pirate, your ugly malice can't be changed, and your mind can never be changed. Dogs can't change their habit of eating shit. A few years ago, when the pirate King Roger was executed, many pirates ambushed the crowd and secretly watched the end of the pirate King Roger. For example, pirates such as Red Hair Shanks, Hawkeye, and Doflamingo have all witnessed the scene of the pirate King Roger being separated forever. If they could be killed in advance, there would not be such a violent and uncontrollable scene today. This kid's weight is much worse than Roger, but he also attracted a wave of pirates. It's a waste. Sengoku looked at Kaido without a trace and nodded slightly. Kaido is also a big pirate, and he is only slightly inferior to Whitebeard. Despicable. Kaido's eyes were full of disdain. His life was full of ups and downs. He was also a figure of the older generation in the sea. He didn't need to think about it to know that the entire Logtown was gathered by thousands of Marines. It's your honor to die with a group of martyrs. At least you should thank the Marines. You have done evil all your life, and you can have such a luxurious funeral. Even the pirate King Roger is envious of you, Sengoku chuckled, and his voice was as thin as a mosquito, and only he and Kaido could hear it. However, you don't have to feel lonely. There are people with even greater backgrounds waiting to be tortured with you. You won't be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs, Sengoku said mysteriously, and with a wave of his hand, two Marine generals pressed a big man with golden hair on his body. Kaido was slightly stunned. He turned his head, and the figure that entered his eyes made him speechless for a moment. Even the hostility in his body disappeared. Golden Lion Shiki? After being stunned for a while, Kaido took a deep breath. Hearing this, Golden Lion just curled his lips and sat down casually. His hands were shackled by sea stone, and he didn't even look at Kaido. You want to execute me and this little devil together? Is your marine so poor that you don't have any funds? Regardless of the occasion, the whole deafening lion's roar spread out and swept through everyone's body like a wave. He was arrogant and disdainful like the king of the sea, full of indifference. Kaido trembled with anger and did not hesitate to curse. These pirates are quite hot, especially Kaido who has been famous for several years. There is no such word as endure in his eyes. A living fossil of the previous era. You dare to talk big when you are reduced to a prisoner. If the pirate King Roger comes back from the dead and sees your miserable scene, I'm afraid he will think that having the same name as you is the biggest stain in his life. Smart Teeth immediately launched a fierce counterattack, but the effect was negligible. Golden Lion was obviously absent-minded, and his domineering eyes dimmed. He seemed to be immersed in memories, thinking of the days when he fought with Roger and Whitebeard. The sudden appearance of the figure immediately attracted the attention of the reporters under the execution platform. They all stared at the blonde Golden Lion in disbelief. He looked battered and exhausted, but he still looked majestic without being angry. Countless flashing cameras immediately aimed at him. Kaido, who was beside him, was dispensable. The world that was not calm once again set off monstrous ripples. Holy Land Mariehua. In the luxurious and warm villa, Dustless was lying comfortably on the sofa. He had just enjoyed the service of Boa Hancock. His face was lazy and listless. Through the image of Den Den Mushi, the scene of Roguetown can be clearly seen. It's really boring. Killing 2 people and making such a big fuss. Picking up the exquisite tea set that was steaming, Wu Chen took a sip of tea gently. The purpose of the World Government and Marine Headquarters is also very simple. It is the same idea as the public execution of Roger. It is nothing more than to improve the support of the government and Marine. Dustless-sama. The space rippled, and a hoarse and urgent voice spread. In the empty room, a white figure drilled out of the ground, revealing some spikes on his body. White Zetsu. Dustless suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. If it was not a special event, White Zetsu would not easily come to him. Immediately, Dustless's voice became cold, faintly murderous. There is a problem with Hawkeye, and the surgeon fruit has fallen into his hands. With a bitter smile, White Zetsu said helplessly. He and Hawkeye were very fast, but someone was faster than them. When they arrived at the trading place, the outcome had already been decided, and the fruit of victory had already been picked by others. Doflamingo or his brother Corazon. With a relaxed face, Dustless asked naturally, and his tone did not change at all. Hearing this, White Zetsu looked at Dustless strangely. He thought he would be angry, but he didn't expect him to be so calm. Then he remembered the person who took away the surgeon fruit, and his face was full of guilt. It's not the 2 brothers, but Tell me in the comment section of your favorite heroine, and I can add it if it's appropriate. Chapter 453. Dustless just sat quietly, silently, tasting the tea by himself, and sometimes shaking the water stains in the teacup, making ripples. The little devil in White Zetsu's mouth is undoubtedly Trafalgar Law. It doesn't matter. If the surgeon fruit is eaten by our own people, it doesn't make sense. Although some things happen suddenly, I can reluctantly accept this outcome. Dustless was unexpectedly calm, and his eyes just quietly looked at the scene of Logetown in the image of Den Den Mushi. The reason why Dustless cares about the surgeon fruit is that he simply values the ultimate operation of ageless surgery. The other is dispensable. The cost of using ageless surgery is the life of the original ability user, and it is useless for his own people to eat it. The first task was met with such an unexpected accident. Hawkeye should be frustrated. Swordsmen are arrogant, and Hawkeye, who is at the top of the kendo, is also the same. No, the little devil named Law seems to have been caught by Hawkeye. Shaking his head gently, White Zetsu reported truthfully. These words extinguished Dustless's hope, and White Zetsu was very serious. In the end, it's just a creation, and it doesn't understand what human nature is. Shaking his head, he glanced at White Zetsu. Guru. Dustless and White Zetsu were chatting, but the Den Den Mushi in his arms suddenly rang. Dustless took out the Den Den Mushi, and there was a flash of surprise in his eyes. This is what he communicated with Hawkeye. The little devil named Law ran away. Before Dustless could ask questions, Hawkeye's gloomy voice sounded on the other side of the Den Den Mushi. Is it Doflamingo? Ripples appeared in Wu Chen's calm eyes. Wu Chen asked calmly with a little suspicion. It's not that Dustless looks down on Doflamingo. Now he is strong, and he is also a big pirate with a little reputation. It is impossible for him to challenge Hawkeye and take Law from him. Is it Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine? Dustless's eyes flashed with brilliance as he thought of the great staff officer who recently hunted Doflamingo. Although Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine's strength is mediocre, she is also a figure of Roger's time, and it is not impossible for her to hide her strength. It's not Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine, Hawkeye said with a hint of complaint in his voice. No matter how fragile he is, he doesn't think that an old woman in her 50s can take it from his own hands. On the snow-covered island, Hawkeye's expression was indifferent. His right arm was stained with blood. The person's it's SSSSS. Thinking of the mysterious man in the green trench coat, his eagle eyes were boiling. His whole body was filled with killing intent, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, gathering cold light. The SSS. S.T. The ability to control the weather. Dustless, who was on the other end of the phone, sighed and asked, "The world is full of wonders and there are countless unheard of abilities. Don't worry about him. How about the tracks of that brat Luo?" Turning the thread of discussion, Dustless pulled the question to Law again. "I don't know the details, but the one who attacked me seems to be a clone of the main body. It's very strong. According to my guess, Law has most likely fallen into the hands of the other party. Since the other party had launched a surprise attack, it meant that they had made preparations in advance." Looking at the bloodstains on his arm, Hawkeye said cautiously, "The people he killed before finally dissipated like light and shadow. What an interesting fruit ability. It's all-encompassing and can even create clones. It can even control the various elements of nature. I didn't expect it to be able to control so many domains. It seems like it's also some kind of unknown fruit." Dustless, who was far away in Mariehua, was quite surprised as it was the first time he had heard of such a strange ability. "That's interesting." Dustless smiled with a faint arc in the corner of his mouth. White Zetsu thought that Dustless would be furious. After all, this devil fruit was stared at by Dustless for a long time. Now even the cooked duck has disappeared. He had worked so hard and calculated everything, but in the end, it was all for naught. "Come back first, I have other things for you," he calmly said to Hawkeye on the other side, and then closed the Den Mushi. After that, Dustless fell into contemplation. This kind of fruit seems to be recorded in the Devil Fruit Illustration Handbook sent by Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars before. As for the host of the ability user, it is unknown. All in all, it is definitely an extraordinary ability. Dustless, who knows Hawkeye's nature, naturally does not doubt him. Hawkeye is not the kind of hypocrite who deceives people casually. Not to mention that White Zetsu was present at the time. The situation in Roguetown seems to be wrong. White Zetsu's slightly surprised voice suddenly came. Dustless was slightly stunned. He also raised his head and stared straight at the scene projected from the image of the Den Mushi, puzzled. The dark clouds in the sky were rolling and squirming violently. The dazzling thunder and lightning crackled, and the sharp sound made people's scalp numb and their ears dizzy. A silent and deadly oppression spread, and by the time they realized it, it was already too late, and breathing was dozens of times more difficult than usual. "What's going on?" Sengoku was stunned. He had been in the sea for half of his life, and he had trained a pair of unusually shrewd eyes. This sudden supernatural phenomenon was obviously deliberately man-made. TSK, you've spun a cocoon around yourself. How dare you drag me out and sentence me? You despicable people deserve such an ending. Golden Lion, who had no scruples, laughed wildly, full of endless ridicule. Even so, his eyes were full of horror, and he was shocked by the power of the thunder and lightning in the sky. The Marines are all sanctimonious hypocrites, and the Emperor can't stand it anymore, so he deliberately sent down the thunder to test you. Kaido was also gloating, but his face was gloomy. There was a strange feeling in the dark. The spearhead of the thunder and lightning in the sky was him and Golden Lion. Chapter 454. Thunder and lightning is one of the most dangerous factors in nature. To some extent, it is the derivation of the will of heaven and earth. In the face of God's anger, it is human nature for human beings who have always been obedient to be afraid. In the face of God's anger, no one can get rid of it. Human beings are emotional creatures. In the face of supernatural phenomena that have never appeared before, especially this kind of ability that only God can show except for God, everyone at the scene became panicked in an instant. The thunder and lightning that can destroy all things pressed them out of breath, and their hair stood up uncontrollably. Death seems to be close at hand. There is a voice warning them that as long as they stay for a second, they will die. What the hell did the damn Navy do? Even God is not pleasing to the eye. In the chaotic crowd, someone finally couldn't stand the deadly oppression and left with a roar. The mysterious power of thunder and lightning is the nemesis of all creatures, especially the monstrous thunder and lightning in front of them. It is obviously aimed at them. His escape immediately caused a chain reaction. In the face of the dense destructive power, everyone was afraid of death. They all scattered in all directions, fearing that they would not be able to escape in time. The quiet scene was immediately rioted, and the frightened crowd was like boiling ants, scrambling to leave one after another, except for some powerful people, or people lurking in the dark who watched silently. One wave is not over, another wave is coming. With a sigh, Sengoku on the execution platform was gloomy. At present, Kaido and Golden Lion have not yet been executed. Now the sudden change caught him off guard. Where is the anger of God? It can fool the ignorant world for a while, but there is no way to hide under his eyes. This is obviously someone deliberately manipulating it. If it is the anger of God, the world government and the celestial dragons have been accomplices to evil for hundreds of years, and they will not appear like today. Bastard, I will catch you and make you look good. But speaking of which, what is this ability? After cursing fiercely, Sengoku frowned. This strange and unpredictable ability, he has never seen it before. He began to recall the ability recorded in the Devil Fruit illustration book in his mind, and the strong people he has fought before. It seems that they have not used this kind of ability. Could it be the Rumble Fruit, which is known as the strongest ability user in nature? Suddenly there was a flash of light in his mind, and Sengoku gloomily guessed that only the ability of Rumble Fruit has this ability to control thunder and lightning. There were also records of the Devil Fruit in the illustrated handbook. Rumble Fruit? How could he explain the violent storm from before? Also, the lightning brewing in the sky seems to be targeting us. If I can drag you down with me, I think Roger will be very happy. Unfortunately, there isn't that old man Garp. In the face of the choice between life and death, Golden Lion was unexpectedly calm, and his tone was unprecedentedly relieved. The successive failures had made him see through life and death. Kaido, on the other hand, was different. Although he maintained his composure, one could still see the hidden fear in the depths of his eyes. Now that his hands and feet were shackled by seastone, he couldn't use his ability. In front of him was the admirals of the Marine headquarters, and behind him was the divine thunder dancing proudly in the sky. There was no chance of survival. Kaido is not Golden Lion. He can't be as calm as him. He still has a good life ahead of him. The Kaido pirates in the New World are still waiting for the return of the strongest king. Drag me down with you? Dream on. Hearing this, Sengoku sneered again and again, and his eyes were shining with a cold light. Not to mention that he was still alive and his ability was not imprisoned like Golden Lion and Kaido. Even if he was hit by thunder and lightning, he didn't think he would be killed. Sengoku's body suddenly emitted a golden gloss. The dark clouds rolled in the dark sky like the night, and the gorgeous light was particularly bright. Sengoku did not hesitate to show his ability, and turned into a tall Buddha. The mighty and extraordinary light of destruction made Kaido's heart desperate. Sengoku, you old man, the execution time is not up yet. Do you want to kill me in advance? If you do, the entire Marine headquarters and the world government will lose face. Kaido's mouth twitched fiercely, and he roared at Sengoku. Once he was hit by the iron fist covered with golden light, he was sure that he would die. This is the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters, not a weed on the roadside. Don't be surprised. Golden Lion Shiki turned his head and glanced at Kaido with a contemptuous look. Obviously, he was not surprised by Sengoku's means. Villains are not worthy of sympathy, and there is no need to talk about morality. The word benevolence and righteousness is insulting to pirates. In the face of Golden Lion and Captain Kaido's sarcasm, Sengoku just replied as usual. Kaido and Golden Lion have killed countless people together, and it's not enough to describe them as a pile of mountains. Buzz. Kaido raised his arm indifferently, and a round air cover condensed in his palm. The breath of death covered his whole body. Kaido's eyes turned scarlet, and under the shadow of death, the nature of a beast broke out. I will not let you go even if I die. Kaido roared at Sengoku, and the bark of 100 Beast Kaido resounded through the sky. This time it's goodbye forever. Hearing this, Sengoku smiled. He didn't want to argue with the dead. He looked at Kaido and Golden Lion indifferently. In his eyes, they were just like corpses. The attack condensed and his hand rushed out. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the thunder and lightning that had been accumulating in the sky for a long time reached its limit, and at the moment when Sengoku launched the attack, it also crashed down. In an instant, Sengoku, Golden Lion, and Kaido were all swallowed. On the other side, Dustless finally arrived at Rogue Town. He stared at the majestic thunder and lightning in the distant sky, and then walked toward the center of the incident with indifference. Chapter 455. The rolling dark clouds were surging, and the squirming was no different from human organs. It was extremely oppressive. The scattered black mist was frightening and horrifying. The turbulent dark torrent seemed to be able to distort time and space, and the sky was blurred. What a strange ability! Looking up at the sky, after a moment of contemplation, Dustless retracted his gaze, and then walked forward with a cold face and a dark mist behind him. The dark clouds in the sky were not on the scale, but they were the true portrayal of Dustless's heart, gloomy and evil. It turned out to be him. Although unexpected, it coincides with my guess. He has the ability to create doppelgangers. Of course, I don't rule out the possibility that Hawkeye is mistaken. In the quiet alley, Dustless walked alone, and his eyes released an awe-inspiring aura. He had already guessed who took Law. The person who took Law, and the person who deliberately created thunder and lightning in the sky to attack the Navy. Dustless's heart has been determined. Boom boom boom. The wooden execution platform, under the impact of the Senshi Sengoku's ability and the violent impact of the thunder and lightning at the same time, disintegrated in an instant and turned into debris. Sengoku, Golden Lion, and Kaido were all swallowed by the thunder and lightning and turned into silver flashing people. Bastard, I can't move. Sengoku's face was blue, and his body trembled uncontrollably. He could not launch an attack, and was about to fall to the ground. His eyes subconsciously looked at Kaido and Golden Lion, and the scene in front of him made him vomit blood directly. Hey, God is on our side. You are in trouble, Sengoku. I don't know when. The sea stone shackles that bound Golden Lion, Shiki, and Kaido's hands and feet have disappeared. The two grimaced and winked at Sengoku. The thunder and lightning of the stone directly shattered the sea stone on their body, and the two were able to regain their freedom. Hey, there is a limit to being arrogant. In the face of absolute justice, even God has to follow the trend. Even though the anger in his heart continued to rise, Sengoku suppressed it very rationally. The more angry he was, the more arrogant Kaido and Golden Lion Shiki would be. Moreover, even if Shiki the Golden Lion and Kaido the 100 Beast were like tigers out of their cages, Logetown was filled with Marines, and they couldn't escape even if they had wings. Boom boom boom. 3 figures fell to the ground one after another, creating 3 large pits. 100 Beast Kaido and Golden Lion Shiki jumped up and joined forces to attack the Buddha Warring States. Bang! A figure suddenly appeared out of thin air, and launched an attack without anyone noticing. Caught off guard, Kaido was blasted away by this powerful force. He smashed through several walls and spat out a mouthful of blood. An old man wearing a cloak of justice descended from the sky. His rough face was majestic and unyielding, his hair and beard were all white, but he was still full of energy. He stared at the Golden Lion Shiki and the 100 Beast Kaido with awe-inspiring eyes. Although the dog head hat on his head was extremely funny, no one dared to look down on him. It was Vice Admiral Garp, the hero of the Navy. Cough. Worthy of being the hero of the Navy, your fists are really painful. 100 Beast Kaido's face was pale, and he couldn't help but cough up blood. Even so, he still struggled to stand up again. Ha! Ha! I knew you were deliberately playing with this old man. Seeing this, Garp only grinned. At the same time, he leaped up and a huge silver light whizzed out, easily pulling the ground out of the abyss. Rankyaku. The dazzling silver luster made people unable to look directly at it, and Kaido was the same. Such a strong light made him have to close his eyes to avoid the destruction of the strong light. It didn't matter if he closed his eyes to fight, For Kaido's observation haki, it didn't matter. I'm not that kind of small character. You want to kill me with this kind of thing? You're looking down on me. A huge fist comparable to an iron bucket condensed and swept out a dark red flame luster. The head of a beast was clearly visible. It looked like a dragon or a tiger, mighty and extraordinary. There was a faint roar of a dragon and a tiger, full of majesty, and then a punch blasted out. Boom, boom, boom. The two forces were obviously at the same stage, and when they came into contact with each other, a violent explosion occurred, and the surrounding environment changed with the rewriting. The Yonko for emperors, who are destined to rule the world in the future, can't be so fragile. Although Garp is strong, he can't kill Kaido directly. Leader, why did you save Shiki and Kaido? They are the opposite of our ideas. Pirates and Marines are the enemies of the revolution. In a dark underground tavern, a few black shadows spoke to the mysterious man in the overcoat with slight dissatisfaction. The man in the green coat just kept silent and didn't speak. Suddenly, he raised his head, and by the dirty light, he could vaguely see the messy tattoo marks on his face, and his eyes were full of wisdom and rationality. It was Manchi di Dorag. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Dorag explained in a hoarse voice. He also knew that this group of people was dissatisfied. After all, saving the pirates was the opposite of his revolutionary ideas, and he must appease this group of people. To resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs. This was the principle that the ancient sages had concluded. To some extent, pirates can barely be regarded as partners of the revolution. With a gentle smile, Dorag gave a mysterious answer. In short, people who can harm and disturb the world are our partners, especially Kaido and Shiki. After breaking out of prison, they will be more hostile to the government and marine. These pirates will attract the attention of the world government and marine, which is good for us. I'm sorry to trouble you, but Law, please be sure to return him to me, otherwise, I will be very distressed, Mr. Dorag. A ghostly voice resounded through the silent and oppressive space, and a figure came out of the darkness. It was Dustless. Chapter 456. Dustless, who came out of the darkness, sneered at the corner of his mouth, looked at several people seriously. Only Durag was extremely mysterious, and Dustless felt that he was covered with a mysterious veil. There was a sense of looking at the veil in the fog. Dare to invade the base of the Revolutionary Army? Looking for death. One of them, aware of the sudden appearance of Dustless, took advantage of the situation, and immediately shot a murderous look in his eyes, and without nonsense, he directly turned into a black afterimage and rushed toward him. The ferocious smile was full of cruelty, and the sharp cold light swept toward the head. Vulgar, take your knife home and kill pigs. Raising his eyelids, Wuchen didn't even look at the person who launched the sneak attack. He raised his right arm casually and directly grabbed the cold light that was coming towards him. Hey! A roar similar to steel sounded, and the scene in front of them was quite simple. Dustless just casually used a thumb to block the incoming Tachi. There was nothing else, and the movement was very simple. This unimaginable scene caused everyone to be unable to come back to their senses. Armament haki? It doesn't seem to be. Durag's equally calm face flashed a trace of surprise. Dustless's fingers still maintained the color of normal human skin. Obviously, with the hardness of his body, he can be as hard as steel. Go to hell. Raising his left arm expressionlessly, his thumb gathered a large number of light particles, and in the dark environment, the light was instantly released, and he looked cold and whistled out. Pucci. The golden light was unstoppable, and the head of the Revolutionary Army cadre had a scorched hole, and the light that penetrated his head went straight toward Durag. It's useless, this fragile attack can't hurt me. Honorary Admiral of the Marine Headquarters, Royce Nan-Saint. His whole body turned into ice dregs, and he easily used the elemental transformation to ignore the incoming light beam. Durag said to Dustless, I've investigated your ability and identity. I know very well that this kind of ordinary trick can't even hit my body. You know that I am an admiral of the Marine Headquarters. And you know my real name. Frowning deeply, Dustless's cheeks were replaced by confusion and incomprehension. No one knows that he is an honorary admiral except for Mariehuas Gorasii, 5 elder stars, and a few high-level marines. No one knows who this honorary admiral is. Now that Durag directly revealed the identity of General Dustless, and even investigated the matter of his celestial dragons, it was hard for Dustless not to be surprised. This guy, does he have spies in the world government or the marine? Clenching his fist, Dustless's face became colder and colder. Durag's mind was meticulous, and it was not impossible for him to plant his own spies in the marine or the world government. Dustless hated traitors and people who threatened him the most in his life. Being able to know his identity meant that the identity of the spy was not low. As for Marine's hero Vice Admiral Garp, Dustless ignored it for the first time. He had seen the upright and stubborn old man, and it was impossible to persuade him to betray the Marine with a knife on his neck. I didn't expect you to be so far-sighted, and the whole world underestimated you. His eyes fell on Durag's face. Dustless sneered again and again, and then he disappeared, and his original body turned into a slowly fading afterimage. However, your expression of knowing everything is really unpleasant. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Looking at Durag indifferently in front of him, Dustless kicked out. Insignificant skill, as I said before, this kind of fragile attack can't hurt me. Aware of the strong force behind him that was enough to destroy a building, Durag's light and calm voice resounded through the dark space. He could have avoided it in time, but he didn't move his body at all. Obviously, he was mocking Dustless with his actual actions. Boom! The destructive power was beyond imagination. Durag was easily blown away, setting off a strong explosion, and all the buildings around him were turned into ruins. The secret room that was tens of meters deep on the ground was buried under Dustless's foot. Boom! Under the ruins, a majestic repulsive force spread out, and the buried debris was easily lifted, and Dustless's figure was directly exposed to the air. Hand over law, or else. The consequences are not something you can bear. His cold eyes stared at Durag in the deep pit, and at the same time his heart was gloomy. This guy's ability was beyond his imagination. This guy doesn't seem to be a Logia user, but he can achieve elementalization, and his body is too hard. Recalling the feeling of Durag's body when his foot fell, Dustless secretly guessed that it was not like a human body, but like a monster full of scales. Thinking of some kind of legendary creature, Dustless's pupils dilated. Could it be that this guy really lives up to his name? He can transform into a dragon that soars in the sky? Wu Chen clenched his fists and said rather gloomily. He couldn't help but look at Durag in a new light. It's not that he is afraid of mysterious creatures like dragons, but in every world, dragons belong to the top predators in myths, and it's inevitable that he is curious and shocked. Although your flashy attacks are strong, they are unable to break through my defense. Standing up easily, Durag said to Dustless. His tone was absolutely rational, and he was not arrogant. Your purpose of getting law is not simple. Celestial dragons are really selfish. I can't figure out why the old man obeys the orders of your group of scum. Not simple? Funny, that kid robbed me of the surgeon fruit I bought with 5 billion berries. I didn't kill him directly, but I will train him in the future to be loyal to me. Hearing this, Dustless sneered again and again. In fact, the real transaction object of the surgeon fruit is himself. As for Doflamingo and Marine, they are disruptors. Chapter 457. The majestic hostility spread out and stared at Durag ferociously. If he could really transform into a dragon, he would not be intimidated. No matter how similar the devil fruit's ability was to the essence of a dragon, there was still a world of difference. Let's see how thick your turtle shell is. The dark clouds in the sky suddenly became extremely bright. It was far more dazzling than the daytime. Looking up, the void behind Wu Chen was dotted with countless vortexes. Dazzling divine weapons swept out from them. Treasure of the king. With Dustless's command, thousands of lights were shot out in an instant. In just a short moment, no less than thousands of various weapons were shot out. It's dangerous, Durag, who was agile and sensed danger, retreated without hesitation. With such an overwhelming number, no one could treat him as heir. Bang, bang, bang. Dodging the sharp golden weapon that was piercing towards him from behind with extreme agility, Durag seemed to be at ease. Stepping on the air. He stepped on the air in a weird way and rushed towards the seaside of Roguetown at full speed. Dustless, who was chasing after him, floated in the sky. Behind him was a large number of peerless divine weapons that were constantly falling. Is there no limit to the weapons in this ability? Doleg said with a frown. In less than a few breaths of time, thousands of divine weapons had already flown out. Doleg's right arm was covered with sharp spikes, and he crushed a golden divine weapon that was piercing towards him. The attacks that were as dense as a storm did not show any signs of stopping. Durag was burning with passion. No matter what he did, he could not do without money. Puff, puff. There must be a loophole in every defense. Even if there were thousands of defenses, it was difficult to achieve perfection. There were still many sword lights that swept past Durag's body, leaving messy bloody marks on his skin. In the face of such a dense number, even with the dragon's scale defense, he was still covered with cuts and bruises, just leaving such negligible scars. If one had to find a perfect creature, only a proud and mysterious existence like the dragon could be qualified. Perfect attacks, impeccable defensive scales, and even the legendary ability to control the 5 elements. In short, the ability was as numerous as the hair on a cow, and they were all the kind of strange existence that was shocking. Is it because he's Luffy's father? Thinking that such a powerful fruit might fall into the hands of Drago, Dustless couldn't help but feel envious and jealous. The number and range of the divine weapons behind him increased dramatically. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Clang clang clang. The ear-piercing rumbles continued, one after another, one wave after another. The golden divine weapons that fell from the ground formed a magnificent golden avenue. Only a cyan scale armor appeared on Durag's body, which easily defended against the incoming weapons. That old bastard must be planning something. Gazing at the boundless ocean in front of him, Durag was obviously not fleeing aimlessly. He must have some unknown purpose. In the future, Durag was able to overthrow the world government's allies one after another, which made the world government so angry that they couldn't find a trace of him for several years. This was enough to prove how extraordinary his brain was. Although Dustless despised this mouse that only knew how to hide and stare expressionlessly at the distant horizon, his heart was as calm as still water as he stared indifferently at the distant void. Boom boom boom. The dark clouds in the sky were violently squirming, and the ear-piercing thunder resounded through the sky. The irregular thunder and lightning condensed, and a thick beam of light pierced through the sky and immediately roared down. The target was Dustless. The speed of the thunder and lightning was extremely fast, and at the same time it happened suddenly. It was inevitable that the whole person was hit by the dancing thunder and lightning in the sky. Immediately, an unprecedented feeling of paralysis spread to the nerve endings. His body twitched for a while, and even the most basic control was difficult to do. This is just the beginning. Seeing this, Durag just sneered again and suddenly waved his big hand, and the whole sky trembled under his hand. The thunder and lightning in the sky stopped, and all the thunder and lightning converged. Dustless was still unable to move. He just floated in the air strangely, motionless, and his eyes were dull and dead. Seeing this, Durag's face was indifferent. He waved his big hand again, and the strange scene appeared again. Suddenly, a gust of piercing cold wind blew in the void, and the monstrous snow followed. Obviously, it was controlled by someone, and all of it wrapped around Dustless, who was already unable to move. In less than half a second, Dustless's whole person was swallowed and annihilated by the white snow, and turned into a huge snowball that was large enough to cover the whole earth. Still far from it. As Durag's voice fell again, the thunder and lightning sounded again, and the sky was filled with heavy rain. The combination of water and snow made the big snowball more solid. Caw caw caw. Just when it was about to show its power again, visible cracks appeared on the surface of the snowball. The surface that was supposed to be white was actually eroded by some mysterious blue power. That's a very evil feeling. Narrowing his eyes, Durag carefully stared at the blue light, and suddenly he had a creepy feeling. He could vaguely see the vague outline of a giant. It's really a wonderful performance. Manchi di Durek. The calm voice came out, containing an indescribable special energy. It lingered in the void for a long time and did not dissipate. The huge snowball slowly collapsed, revealing a burly figure. If you can really become a dragon, you can give it a try. I also want to see whether the complete Kinsusinu or the legendary dragon is stronger or weaker. After that, the complete Kinsusinu moved with the momentum, and the long sword was unsheathed. The awe-inspiring sword wind cut through the thorns, and was divided into two by the sea. What kind of monster is this? Durag lost his calmness, and said in a hoarse and gloomy voice. He stared at the blue giant that was hundreds of meters high. Even with his composure, he was sitting on pins and needles at this moment, and the shadow of death covered his whole body. Chapter 458. The complete form of Kinsusinu was equivalent to completely stepping into the realm of God. It was one of the invincible abilities that could only be activated when the strength reached an unprecedented level. Both the attack and defense were sublimated to an incredible level. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by a loud bang, a long and narrow crack appeared on the calm sea, stretching and extending without limit. The scale was tens of kilometers long and boundless. Looking up, even if you wanted to see through it, you couldn't see the end at a glance. Is this your true form? Durag's tone was full of surprise, and he clenched his huge fist tightly. He didn't expect the gap between the two to be so big. In front of the gorgeous golden light, Durag also felt a fear from the bottom of his heart. Both sides were completely dimensional, especially the scarlet eyes that looked at him made his soul tremble. Even so, he couldn't just wait for death. Dense green scales emerged all over his body, and Durag's body also underwent an amazing change. This guy is really a dragon fruit, a rare species. Wu Chen touched his smooth chin, and carefully looked at Dolag, who had turned into the state of mythical beast. There was a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. It is precisely because of this that it has value. At a glance, Durag's body had already transformed into a snake body that was several hundred meters long. Its entire body was covered in dense scales, and its dragon head and antlers were extraordinarily mighty. Its elegant body completely ignored the existence of gravity as it floated in the void. Bursts of dragon roars resounded through the void, splashing out visible ripples, and the ancient dragon roar spread throughout the sea. The battle between the two behemoths quickly attracted the attention of the navy and the pirates in Roguetown, and they all looked at the battle between the two prehistoric creatures in horror. Hundreds of meters of insects can also overturn the sea when they move, not to mention these two behemoths. Ow ow ow, Durag, who was soaring in the void, revealed to the complete form of Kinsusinu, and the hot air in his mouth was blowing out, revealing his big mouth full of fangs. Is it useful, overconfident idiot? A contemptuous smile appeared on his cold face. He raised his ancient katana again, and stared at the dragon flying toward him. Then he mercilessly slashed down, and an awe-inspiring and domineering saber wind swept out again. The light that cut through the thistles and thorns streaked across the sky. Wherever it passed, there would be slight distortions. The sharp roar made people dizzy, and the saber wind that scattered in all directions was especially domineering. Even though they were hundreds of meters away, they still felt a prickling sensation on their skin. Poochie. Even though its whole body was protected by hard scales, Durag was still covered with wounds. Blood splashed everywhere. The dragon that was roaming in the sky suddenly fell down, and turned into a dead snake on the ground. Its aura was so weak that it could be ignored. It was struggling at death's door, only relying on its instinct to float. You're surprisingly weak, dragon. Dustless curled his lips in disdain. Just as he was about to remove the complete Kinsusinu, the arrogant dragon raised its head again, and glared at Dustless ferociously while speaking in human language. Then I really disappoint you. After suffering such a serious injury, Durag's vitality was unexpectedly strong. It still maintained a state of high spirits. Its dragon eyes were glaring at Dustless, and its prestige was not reduced. A strange color flashed in its eyes from time to time, as if it was calculating the odds of victory. Let's take a gamble. After careful calculation, the reason in Durag's eyes was replaced by madness. When it was about to launch a sneak attack, Dustless's cold voice spread in the vast night. Until now, you still think that you still have the confidence to defeat me. Shaking his head helplessly, Dustless really didn't know where this guy's confidence came from. Now that his head was broken and bleeding, he still maintained his eagerness to try. But then again, this guy is such a powerful fruit, I might as well make use of it. The value of controlling him is far better than killing him. With a gleam in his eyes, Dustless secretly decided. According to the ability shown by Durag before, the dragon fruit he used should have the ability to control the 5 elements. The strength of the ability can be imagined. Especially at such a young age, Durag obviously hasn't exerted the fruit's ability to the limit. If he wants to exert the dragon fruit to the fullest, he still has a long way to go. Don't worry, I changed my mind. Instead of killing you directly, it's better to keep you in captivity. After squeezing out your value, I'll kill you like garbage. Dustless in Consisanu had a gloomy face, and the laughter from his mouth made people's scalp numb. The scarlet 5-pointed star eternal kaleidoscope was even more evil and demonic. It would be a pity to kill Durag directly like this, especially the dragon fruit he used. Dustless was also very envious of the ability to transform into a dragon. If I can snatch the dark fruit one day in the future, with my body's toughness, I can definitely have the same fruit's ability as Blackbeard. At that time, I can kill Durag and obtain his ability. Thinking of Blackbeard who dominated the sea in the future, Dustless's eyes were filled with fanaticism. The reason why Blackbeard could devour other fruits was firstly because of the dark fruit's ability, and secondly because of his special body structure. On the surface it was similar to a human's, but in reality, there was a world of difference. Dustless didn't think that his body was worse than Blackbeard's, and he even had an advantage over him. The only thing he lacked was the dark fruit. Want to control me? Dream on. Durag roared indignantly. No matter how calm he was angered by Dustless. Dustless's words clearly meant that he wanted to raise him as a slave. This was intolerable. Dream on? I don't like to dream. And you seem to have entered the end of the predicament. You are in a dilemma. Hearing this, Wuchen just quietly stared at Durag's body that was full of wounds. He couldn't help but sigh secretly, although there was the factor of bullying the weak now. Chapter 459. In the future, he could be called the most vicious criminal in the world, which also reflected what kind of person Durag was. If he was an ordinary person, the world government would not give him such a good name to set him off. Before you were in your best state, you could only withstand one move. Now with this kind of behavior, the threat to me is even less. Your dying struggle has no effect except for more wounds. Durag in front of him was covered in blood, and wounds of various sizes were all over his body. His breath was weak, and he was no different from an old man in the wind. In the eyes of Dustless, he was already a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and his life was in his hands. If you can, I will give it a try. I will not bow to a villain like you even if I die. Durag didn't want to talk nonsense. He was a man of ideals and beliefs. If it were other conditions, he might be able to endure it. Durag understood the principle that a real man should know when to stretch and when to shrink. However, Dustless's conditions exceeded the limit of tolerance. The leader of the revolutionary army became a slave who shook his head and begged for mercy in order to survive. He couldn't do it no matter how broad-minded he was. I won't accept people like you even if you really bow your head. Shaking his head, Dustless said casually, Durag's ambition is known to the world. His ambition is not limited to an island or a country. The so-called dream is to liberate all mankind. Dustless will also be uneasy with such an ambitious explosive around him. It is better to directly modify his memory. You don't seem to understand the situation. You may be enough to devour the whole world, and you will not be liked by anyone, and I am no exception. The golden evil light converged in an instant, and the huge giant disappeared. Dustless floated alone in the boundless sky, and his left eye began to undergo amazing changes. With a lavender base, a circle of mysterious black lines spread out, and 9 mysterious black magatama hung on it. What a strange eye. The information collected before did not mention that he had this eye. With a cautious look, Durag's dragon eyes were full of vigilance. In the next second, Durag's body also returned to its normal human form. It was not difficult to see that maintaining that state was very strenuous. Activating the devil fruit consumed physical strength. The previous dragon god state consumed dozens of times more physical strength than usual. Even after years of hard training, he still felt tired. He was panting, and cold sweat was dripping from his temples uncontrollably. You're really in a sorry state. You can only say that you're a snake in a dragon's coat. You have a golden exterior and a rotten interior. An emotionless voice came out of Dustless's throat. After Durag got out of this state, he was covered in blood. The long and narrow wounds almost swallowed him whole. If it weren't for the dragon fruit's powerful vitality, he might have died long ago. Wallow in your dreams forever. Just a glance, the so-called most vicious criminal in the world, will forever wallow in the world of dreams. Nothing will happen if you voluntarily hand over law. Why do you have to end up like this? Falling beside Drago, Dustless stared at Drago, who had completely turned into a walking corpse, and whispered, "As the saying goes, a good death is better than a bad life." Maybe if it were someone else, they would choose to compromise. The powerful eye power of Rinsei Sharingan is not something that Durag can bear. To be conservative, Dustless chose to use the right eye with a slightly weaker eye power, Tensigan, to search for traces of law. Pretending to be a savior, it turns out that the bad things he did are no less than me. Dustless looked at Drago with disdain, and there was a trace of contempt in his eyes. He thought that this old guy was really a god who saved the world, but after reading the memory in his mind, he found that his idea was too simple. Now the Revolutionary Army is only at the beginning of its establishment. Its prestige is not enough, and it has not made any substantial action. It is active in the dark world, and life is difficult. Some people inevitably feel hesitant about the future, and they will shrink back and choose to be deserters. Most of these people are secretly executed. Hypocritical to the extreme. After a while, after reading all the memories of Drago, Dustless had mixed feelings. It is undeniable that Drago really has the revenge to unify the world, but his means are not very flattering. The reason why the Revolutionary Army is so low-key is that many people are looking for power rocks and ancient weapons. Both are weapons of mass destruction, and Drago obviously can't play with them. The ambition is not small. Pluton, Tianwang, and Sea King all want to take it for themselves. With a sneer, Dustless's handsome face was full of sarcasm. The Revolutionary Army is a group of uncouth people. It is impossible to get the ancient weapons. They who don't know the poneglyph will never find the location of the ancient weapons. In the whole world, only the survivor of O'Hara can understand the real poneglyph, and can interpret the place where the ancient weapons are sleeping. A mysterious energy fluctuation gushed out from his palm, and invaded Durag's mind. Dustless was rewriting Durag's memory. The memory of the past didn't change, but there was one more special command: to be loyal to him forever. After a while, Drago's look returned to normal. He still maintained the silence of the past. His wise and deep eyes were calm, and his eyes were full of respect when he looked at Dustless. One sentence also destroyed the image of this ferocious criminal that the world feared. "Master." Hearing this, Dustless nodded expressionlessly. The word master sounded very awkward and made him very uncomfortable. He originally wanted to correct Dragon Dark Fruit and change the way he addressed Dragon Dark Fruit, but after thinking about it, he gave up. After obtaining the Dark Fruit, Dustless would personally kill him and seize the ability of the Dragon Fruit. Ah. Chapter 460. Time flew by, and 3 days passed quietly between his fingers. Dustless Mariehua looked at the morning paper of the next day with interest, and the most conspicuous banner clearly left such words. A large number of pirates in Rogue Town were all annihilated by the Marine without any escape. Shiki was killed on the spot, and Kaido was seriously injured and his whereabouts are unknown. His whereabouts are unknown. To some extent he escaped. It is undeniable that Kaido does have that ability. After a moment of silence, Dustless's fingers tapped rhythmically on the transparent table. Whether it was the 100-Beast Kaido or the Golden Lion Shiki, they were just passers-by in his long destiny, insignificant. He once again put on a desperate escape for the world. He deserves to be one of the Yonko for emperors in the future. Recalling Kaido's past, his heart was as calm as water. He was a person who performed miracles. Even if he slipped away from the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, Dustless would not be surprised. He was captured 18 times when he challenged the other Yonko, 4 emperors, and the Marine. He was also tortured more than 1,000 times. Kaido had been sentenced to death 40 times. When he was hanged, his chains would break. When he was pressed onto the guillotine, his machete would shatter. When he was stabbed by a spear, his spear would break. He had sunk as many as 9 huge prison ships. This incredible record is enough to make the strong people all over the world afraid. It's really boring, those guys have been dustless to this point in order to save their face. Dustless said with a sigh of relief. Dustless saw the scene in Rogue Town that day, and it was indeed as recorded in the newspaper, but the newspaper did not mention anything about the heavy losses on their side. Obviously, the Marine deliberately concealed the truth of the matter. This kind of thing is not surprising. It is the government's strength to invert right and wrong. Regardless of Dustless's Tenryubito face, Hawkeye said straightforwardly. Hearing that, Wuchen casually shrugged his shoulders and smiled. He started to recall the initiator of all this, Dolag. Everything was thanks to that old man. After tampering with his memory, Dustless did not make things difficult for him. He was still the former leader of the Revolutionary Army, but he added a lot of spice to his memory. Search for the whereabouts of Nico Robin. Only by grabbing this key would he be able to open Pandora's ink box. Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Sky will be promoted to the position of Fleet Admiral, and the new Admiral Sengoku will take over Sky's position and become the next Marine Fleet Admiral. Only in Hawkeye and Dustless's room, White Zetsu suddenly popped out of the ground and revealed even more shocking news. Hearing this, even with Hawkeye's calm temperament, he didn't recover for a while, his pupils dilated. The replacement of the Marine Fleet Admiral is not a trivial matter. The scope of indirect influence affects the whole world situation. Warring states, only he is qualified. Dustless said with a look of understanding in his eyes. Dustless, who knew this, was unusually calm but gently nodded. Although he didn't know when warring states would be promoted to the position of Fleet Admiral, he was sure that the person who would replace Sky would be warring states. Because so far, warring states is the only admiral in the Marine Headquarters, and the only one who is eligible to be promoted to Fleet Admiral. Garp refused to be promoted to Admiral. Can the news be confirmed? White Zetsu. Looking up, Dustless asked calmly. No matter how Hawkeye reacted, he still cared about the accuracy of the news. After warring states became the Marine Fleet Admiral, one of the major decisions laid the foundation of the whole world. This is natural. Warring states and Sky just came out of the office of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. I am afraid it will not be long before they become Fleet Admiral Warring States and Sky Admiral. White Zetsu said confidently. Since the last time he was caught by the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and even half of his body was burned, he retreated and began to spy carefully. Despite this, he still occasionally heard the conversation between Warring States and Sky. But the strange thing is that Warring States is obviously promoted to Fleet Admiral, but his face is unexpectedly ugly and scary. White Zetsu was puzzled when he remembered the gloomy face of Warring States that day. Promotion is a good thing, but Admiral Sensei, looked like he had lost his parents, which really made White Zetsu confused. This is something new. Hearing this, Hawkeye also interjected with curiosity. Promotion to Marine Fleet Admiral with a sad face, but the secret behind it is worth exploring. How is Fleet Admiral Sky's performance? If I didn't guess wrong, he should have the same ugly expression as Warring States. Looking at White Zetsu with a smile, Dustless asked mysteriously. He had already faintly guessed the content of the conversation between the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and Sensei, and Fleet Admiral Sky. Yes, warring states and Sky's faces are extremely ugly. White Zetsu nodded when he heard the words, and the facts coincided with Dustless's guess. With a strange smile on the corner of his mouth, Dustless picked up the straight teacup on the table and took a sip with a pleasant look. His deep eyes were wise and full of rationality. As a Marine, it is a righteous force that defends the world with absolute justice. Naturally, it will not be easily defeated. Sky and warring states are among the best among them. Now the strange face is really strange. If I didn't guess wrong, the deformed product of 7 warlords of the sea is about to be born. Dustless secretly murmured, although his guess is very certain. As a Marine of absolute justice, he naturally hates evil pirates, and 7 warlords of the sea is a special organization, an extreme pirate in the name of justice. Warring states and Sky have spent most of their lives dealing with pirates, and they are faced with the dilemma of suddenly joining forces with pirates. It must be difficult for them to accept it. Both in public and private, there is a feeling of betrayal. Their former comrades have fallen under the blade of the pirates, and the Marines shouldering the flag of justice are colluding with the pirates. This is no different from slapping their own face. What can you do if you struggle? In the end, your Marine is just the face of the government. It is dispensable. Walking out of the window, Dustless sighed with mixed feelings as he stared at the slowly dissipating Marine battleship in the distance. Strength is power. Even if the Marine headquarters is unwilling, they can only bow their head. Chapter 461. The only thing that interests Dustless is that both Boa Hancock and Hawkeye have been tamed by him, and the future Shichibukai is equal to the lack of 2 suitable candidates. The position of Shichibukai is not something that can be done easily. At the very least, it is suitable to be a famous big pirate, and their strength must be recognized by the world. Let's go with the flow. These trivial things, leave it to the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, to worry about. It has nothing to do with me. With a silent sigh, the confusion disappeared, and Dustless was too lazy to entangle. The world government and Tenryubito are inextricably linked, but they are not very involved. Tenryubito is the behind-the-scenes boss of the government, and they can take care of the world without worrying about their employees. What's more, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, will not ask for help from Tenryubito. Of course, they are more direct and disdainful. More than 99% of Tenryubito are synonymous with incompetence and uselessness in their eyes. There is one more thing. As if thinking of something, White Zetsu suddenly opened his mouth, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. It was originally a trivial matter, but after thinking about the cause and effect, he felt that it was necessary to tell Dustless. The recent sailing route of the Don Quixote pirates is a bit strange. After a moment of silence, White Zetsu spoke. A day ago, the Don Quixote pirates were still circling in the New World, and now the sailing route is completely opposite, and the destination is even more strange. Don Quixote pirates? Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed in his eyes. Don Quixote da Flamingo is now just a small character, and Dustless can't see it, and it's an insignificant route problem. Seeing Dustless showing signs of anger, White Zetsu quickly said, "The sailing track of the Don Quixote pirates is completely opposite from the original, and the destination seems to be sailing in the direction of Mariehua." With a sigh of relief, White Zetsu knew the truth, and such a strange sailing route was indeed too abnormal. Mariehua. Could it be that Doflamingo is going to turn over a new leaf and be reborn after surrendering himself? Hawkeye was obviously quite surprised and then joked in boredom. Doflamingo is a very evil pirate. He has done countless bad things. At a young age, the bounty on his head is much higher than that of some old pirates. Turn yourself in and repent, unless the sun rises in the west. Rolling his eyes, Dustless shook his head and continued to analyze. Doflamingo is a different kind of pirate. His purpose is not as simple as other big pirates. He is meticulous and will use anyone he can to achieve his purpose. At such a young age, Doflamingo had sent Virgo to infiltrate the Navy, starting from the most basic soldier. It could be seen that Doflamingo was a patient person. You dare to come to Mariehua on your own initiative. The calm eyes of the ancient well splashed with faint ripples, and the corners of his mouth outlined an arc of interest. After a moment's deliberation, Yang Ling's eyes regained their calm. He could vaguely guess the reason for Doflamingo's visit. It seems that he is going to lay his cards on the table. His courage are not small. In the past, the reason why the Marines chased after Doflamingo, according to Dustless's speculation, was that they did not know his identity as a Tenryubito, and the second reason was that some Tenryubito were behind it. Doflamingo knows the so-called Mariehua national treasure. Although he doesn't know the specific content, it must be related to the life and death of Tenryubito, so it is not impossible for the Marines to chase Doflamingo behind his back. However, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are all old and cunning people. Even if he is a Tenryubito, if he is so bold, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, may kill him. The status of Tenryubito is higher than the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, but in the end, the world is still respected by the strong, and only a Tenryubito like Dustless can face the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars calmly. As for those Tenryubito who are lazy all day long, they may not have the confidence of Dustless. Young master, what we are doing is no different from looking for death. We are just walking into a trap. On the calm sea, a large ship sailed at high speed. The bow was a fiery red bird, and a strong man with pink feathers stood on it, looking at the sea in front of him blankly. His heart was as calm as stagnant water. Behind him were the family cadres of the Don Quixote pirates, as well as the crew. Captain, Marines Vice Admiral Tsuru could easily chase us all over the world. If we go to the world government's nest like this, 100 lives will not be enough. The sloppy man Trouble persuaded the tall man at the bow of the ship, and his heart was extremely bitter. When mentioning the word captain, Trouble deliberately emphasized the word, hoping that Doflamingo could take responsibility and not do stupid things. Law and the surgeon fruit could be restarted if they disappeared. Entering the tiger's mouth meant that they had completely stepped into hell. There is no doubt that the expressionless man with bronze skin in the bow of the ship is Doflamingo. Don't worry, Mariehua. I will go when I want to go. No one can stop me. Those 5 guys have to step aside. Hearing this, Doflamingo's mouth swept with an arrogant smile, and his cold heart was filled with warmth. After personally executing the traitor Corazon, he has regarded these crew members as family. Jumping off the bow and looking at the crew, Doflamingo nodded with satisfaction. But then again, you don't have to go with me. Those guys won't care about you, Doflamingo said in a deep voice. He can't shelter the crew who accompany him day and night. They won't dare to touch me. I'm different from those rubbish Tenryubito. Looking at the dark surface in the distance, Doflamingo smiled confidently. The unprecedented confidence in his tone made the crew tactfully shut their mouths. Within the Don Quixote pirates, he is the dictator, and no one can question Doflamingo's will, as well as his words and deeds. Thank you. If you like this book, tell me about the heroine you like. If conditions permit, I will add it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.